spectacular month of June in style with his first career multi-home run game, driving in 4 runs off the 2 blasts. Adam Jones and J.J. Hardy also joined the party, each adding solo shots of their own, and the Orioles celebrated a series opening win. Well, that was all in Game 1. What's in store for Game 2? Find out next. O's and Rangers on MASN. It's the Orioles on MASN on a hot and humid night in downtown Baltimore. It's the Orioles and the Texas Rangers. Tonight it's Game 2 in this 4-game series. And hi, everyone. I'm Jim Hunter. Jim Palmer in a moment. And after dropping 3 of 4 to Tampa Bay over the weekend, the Orioles last night needed a bounce-back game and a solid outing. And Ubaldo Jimenez took the baseball, and he dominated the Texas lineup, and the Orioles grabbed the opener in this series. Ubaldo had it all going. He won his first start since May the 8th. He walked just 1 batter. That tied a season low. 4 base hits, 1 run, and he had 7 strikeouts. He kept the Ranger batters off balance. Michael Choice, no chance at that big breaking ball. Sin-Soo Chua called strike 3. Alex Rios went down a couple of times. And Leonis Martin, another strikeout, as Jimenez along the way strikes out 7 in picking up the win. And Jim Palmer, one of those nights where if Ubaldo pitches like that the rest of the year, the Orioles are really going to be relevant in this race.
Well, he's now pitched well in the last 4 starts. Now he's only won 1 of them, as you mentioned. Hadn't won in April, hadn't won in June. Of course, we're into July 1st. Welcome July, by the way. But there was a combination of him pitching well and them getting early runs. If you go back, that was his 17th start. Only 1 other time did he get more than 3 runs. So they get him a lot of runs, they get him early, and then he's been a better pitcher. He's been working with Dave Wallace, Dom Chidi. I think he's a more confident guy, and if you follow his footsteps last year, 9-9 going in September, had the best September in baseball. Orioles hope he has the best July, August, and September.
All right, well, it's all about the pitching, and because of the doubleheader on Friday and Bud Norris on the DL, the Orioles tonight have to go to the bullpen. T.J. McFarland comes out of the pen, and he'll make the start.
Yeah, well, you can see he's really been pitching wonderful baseball. Sinker, changeup, slider guy. They told him when he went back to Norfolk, you need to work on the slider. He did. He's been very effective. Numbers against the left-handers coming down. You can see what he did down at AAA Norfolk as a starter. You were telling us before the game, he hasn't made his last start, I think, May 18th. So they're going to have to stretch him out. And I talked to him. He said, listen, I'm just going to try not to get ahead of myself. It's kind of like you're a quarter miler. Now all of a sudden you might have to run a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile, but you still got to run that first quarter of a mile. So it's 1 pitch at a time, 1 inning at a time. See where you are after 3 innings and go from there.
Well, what can the Orioles expect out of TJ tonight? His longest outing is 4 2/3. That was once.
Well, that'll work. The bullpen's pretty rested. I think the one thing we need to look for, are they hitting it on the ground? One of the best averages in the American League against left-handed pitching, even though the Rangers have scuffled with runs, is the Texas Rangers.
Well, if the Orioles hit 4 home runs, it won't matter. It's the O's and the Texas Rangers here, Game 2 in this 4-game series. It is hot, it is humid, and the Oriole baseball's looking to stay hot. Oriole on Masson is brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Find Southwest Airlines fares online only at southwest.com. And by Navy Federal Credit Union. 4 million members, 4 million stories. Navy Federal Credit Union. Well, there's a hot one downtown as the Orioles take on the Texas Rangers. Here's our train game time temperature. Visit trainsearch.com to find your local train comfort specialist dealer. It's hard to stop a train really hard. Well, it's 88 degrees at first pitch. It got to the mid-90s today, and that humidity keeps creeping up. Last night, 51%. Tonight, up to 59%. So the O's take on the Rangers. Here's the Texas lineup for tonight. Chu, Andrus, and Rios with Beltre in the cleanup spot. How about those numbers against the O's over the last couple of years? Chirinos will catch. Jimenez at first base. Rosales makes his season debut for the Rangers. Odor and Robertson rounding it out.
So T.J. McFarland, this will be his second major league start. Again, out of the bullpen, he's done a marvelous job. You can see, and again, these are bullpen numbers. The breaking ball, slider, the fastball, almost 70% of the time. When he's successful, it will be around the knees, and then the changeup. I thought that actually that percentage would be higher, but it isn't. So again, I mean, a sinker, slider, changeup guy wants to throw the ground ball. This is a great ballpark to do it. Certainly that was demonstrated. Joe Saunders throwing the 4 home runs. So again, I think he's got some experience. Rule 5 guy, had to stay with the Orioles all last year. They liked him. He's not overpowering. He's going to throw, what do you think, 88, maybe touch 91. So it's not about the radar gun. It's about making your pitches and using all your pitches. And then he's a very good athlete. Football player, basketball player coming out of the Chicago area. And very athletic left-hander.
Well, he is well rested. He last worked on Saturday, pitched 1 inning against Tampa Bay in that 4 o'clock game. His only other start was last June 28th against the Yankees. He pitched to a no decision and lasted 2 2/3 innings. Here is Sin-Soo Choo, and he goes after the first pitch, and we are underway. Choo really had a rough month of June. He's one of those guys that enjoy turning the calendar to July today. And it's 0-2. Batted 179 in June. That is not him.
Yeah, well, first of all, it did hurt his ankle, and it's a back angle, so it's the one you push off. So there's a skipper around Washington, and because of all the injuries, had to bat him in the 3rd spot. The reason they gave him $130 million for 7 years is to lead off. And because of all the injuries, he's really hasn't until recently hit back in that spot. There's a good slider. And so again, pitch ahead, pitch out of the zone. Try to get the grounders. You got a very, very, very good defense behind you. And they put the shift on Chu.
And it gets ahead. No balls and 2 strikes. Of course, TJ coming through the minor leagues was a starter. And this one's blooped foul the other way. In the shift, Flaherty has no play. 112 starts in the minor leagues. That doesn't always necessarily translate here.
Well, no, but at least he knows how to do it, but he just hasn't done it recently. So I think that's one of the reasons, because he came out of the Cleveland Indian organization, and he had, what, 16 and 8 2 years ago at AA and AAA. So they figured, you know what, we need to have pitching depth in our organization.
And this is line to left field. It's going to fall for a base hit. There's Sin-Soo Choo. Nice job of hitting there. Pierce bobbled the ball, but no advancement.
Now take a look at the Oriole defense, and pretty good one. Pierce, Jones, Markakis, Flaherty playing 3rd. If you haven't paid attention, haven't been, maybe just came back from Europe or someplace like. Manny Machado serving his 5-game suspension. So Flaherty will play 3rd. Hardy, the Gold Glover. Scope playing marvelous second base. Davis 3rd to 1st. He played 3rd base last night. And Caleb Joseph. And that is your Oriole defense, presented by Chevrolet.
There's Mr. Flaherty at 3rd. When Manny was on the DL early in the year, he was getting some regular reps over there.
So we see that's the first ball. So 5 straight strikes to Chu. And sometimes young pitchers, because you want to throw strikes, you throw too many. He would have liked to have pitched out of the zone to Chu and didn't do it, and he looped a single. I mean, Andrus, and he had a great June. And he's a right field hitter. So if you're struggling for runs, and the Rangers are, I mean, they've scored 2 runs or less in 7 out of their last 11 games. Their batting average is around 224. Again, with all the injuries, Fielder with the neck, he's gone. Moreland with the ankle, he's finished. Profar, shoulder problems. He was going to be their second baseman, so.
There's a strike. Yeah. Laz Diaz likes the lower end of the strike zone.
Well, that's kind of where TJ would like to live.
Yep.
Yeah, he would like to dwell down around the knees.
If you're going to dwell low.
Right, and of course, what are the Rangers going to do? They're going to say, make him bring the ball up. And what did you hit? You didn't hit a sinker. You hit a ball up in the zone. Didn't hit it well.
Changeup bounce towards Scope. Jonathan will get the lead runner. Nicely done. No throw back to first. So Hardy at the pivot at second base, and Jim, Buck Showalter was raving about the tagging ability of J.J. Hardy.
Yeah, well, right here, I mean, he's going to slap a tag on him right there, and watch him keep the tag on and then show it to the umpires. You know, with a new challenge system, and right here, this is Chirinos' double. As it turns out, it would actually be reversed. But again, the tag makes it seem close. So again, I think in this day and age, whether you're a base runner or a infielder, you have to sustain the slide, because they will check if you come off the bag if you're a base runner, and if you're an infielder, you better do it, because if they think it's close, or maybe it was close, they challenge, and sometimes calls get reversed.
And here's Alex Rios with Andrus at first, and it's high 1-0. And you saw JJ pointing over to Jonathan Scope. He helps Jonathan during the games, directing him, reminding him where he's supposed to be. And of course, on the coverage, with a right-handed batter up, likely Scope would cover second base if Andrus tries to steal.
Yeah, and you already know that if you're a pitcher, as far as the double play balls and whatever. I mean, you know, you turn around, don't always announce it to the other team, but you know who's going to be covering, because if a comebacker comes to you quickly, even though you want to kind of keep your hands together and take your little crow step, you want to know who's covering.
Jonathan has been playing very, very well defensively as he gains more experience. And the 1-1 to Rios is chopped towards third. Diving stop by Flaherty. And out at second base in a close play.
Yeah, really nice play. Yeah, because if Hardy gets it, Rios runs well. So does Andrus. I mean, the key to this play is how good a secondary lead did Elvis Andrus get. So you can see there's a nice play, and then from his knees, quick play to Scope. Andrus coming in hard, and a lot of range. I mean, he can play shortstop, he can play any of the infield positions all the way around the diamond. He can also play the outfield. So again, if this is a base hit, you're going to get one of the hottest hitters in baseball coming up, and now that'll be Adrian Beltre, and now all of a sudden you got to face him, but nobody in scoring position, no first and third. Take your chances.
2 ground balls, 2 outs, and there's a strike on the corner. Now, before the game today, well before batting practice, Bobby Dickerson and Mike Bordick were out with Flaherty and Scope, and Flaherty was working on his throws not to first base but to second base. And how about that? In the first inning tonight, he's tested and needs to make a throw to Jonathan at second base.
Well, Ryan at the batting cage said, how many ground balls do you think I'll get to field tonight? And I said, well, if TJ McFarland's on his game, probably a lot. I mean, I had one of the greatest third basemen of all time. I mean, one of the greatest fielders, Brooks Robinson, 16 straight Gold Gloves, and throw a lot of ground balls. But I always knew Brooks was there. But now you get a lefty like McNally, Cuellar, Flan. I think Brooksy, actually the first year Flannery came up, was playing third. I mean, they just catch everything. Maybe they take base hits and turn them into double plays or outs. And it is the hot corner. And that's why it's such a different, I think one of the reasons Ryan Flaherty is always going to be on this club, because he can play shortstop.
Right.
So he's the guy that.
Yeah, he's the backup.
If you're ever going to give Hardy a day off, or there's maybe a day-to-day injury, Ryan Flaherty is going to be your guy.
2-1 on Beltre. And there's a strike on the corner. Good look at our Jeep inside the numbers. Well, do you dominate left-handed pitching? Texas does. That's one thing they have done well on the year.
Oh, well, the other thing is, we know Detroit's always one of the great offensive teams, but how about the Orioles? And the Angels have, a lot of right-handers and flat-out hit, with Trout and Pujols and whatever. But the Orioles, they usually struggle against lefties, but this year a little bit better because of that average.
High pop-up, shallow right. Markakis will move in on it. And Nick has it for the out. A real solid start for TJ McFarland. Texas doesn't score. Here come the Birds. this hot night. No breeze. You can't see the team names on the flags. Let's get a look at the Orioles starting lineup, brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Find Southwest Airlines fares online only at southwest.com. Markakis will lead off. Steve Pearce in the number 2 spot. He's sorry it's July, or maybe not. First career 2-home run game last night. Jones, Cruz, and Davis, Hardy, Scope, Flaherty, and Caleb Joseph batting ninth.
You were talking, Pierce hits 2 home runs. Nick Martinez, he comes out and his fastball 67%, breaking ball at 20. That's a curveball and a slider, and then the changeup 13% of the time. Young pitcher. Last year pitched A-ball AA, 5 games in AA, and because of all the injuries, Harrison, Holland with a microfracture, you can go down the list. He hasn't really pitched that well. Righties not hitting him as well as lefties. You can see the 331. The Orioles know about him because he's already faced them. They lost to the Orioles, gave up 9 hits, 6 runs. So he's lost his last 4 games, and not overpowering, but doesn't throw a lot of strikes. And we'll see if that plays out here tonight.
And Markakis will take a strike. 0-1.
Well, there goes your low strike zone. Yeah, throws 17.7 pitches per innings, and then again he's a fly ball pitcher. 94 fly balls, 73 on the ground, and got a good number. It's at least that's a good starting point, 22. But he has to command his stuff. And I was talking to Steve Busby, who's a terrific pitcher who does television, and he said, it's almost like the slider and the curveball, they never quite work together. There's a good changeup, or maybe a sinker, I guess. It looked like it went down. So he said he's so young, learning how to pitch at this level because of all the injuries, and maybe has to some nights throw more change-ups, maybe the curveball or the slider versus the curveball, and just try to figure it out. And it's hard sometimes to do that at this level. There is his pitching coach, Mike Maddox. And I loved his quote yesterday. Mike was saying, it's a challenge. We lost all these guys, and this is an opportunity for all these young pitchers. There's a hook for, again, out of the zone.
Well, to give you an idea of how fast he got here, in spring training, he was in the minor league camp the entire spring training. Did not even have a locker in the major league clubhouse for spring training. And Markakis will take low for ball 3. So he believed he was going to begin at AA Frisco, which he did. And then there were all the injuries. Even Darvish missed his first start with that stiff neck. And
well, right there, that's a minor league curveball or a major league curveball to a major league hitter. And the minor leagues, they swing at it because it was a good one.
3-2, high fly ball, right center field. Rios back on it, calling off the center fielder Daniel Robertson. And Markakis skies out 1 away.
But take a look at the Rangers defense. Chu Robertson, a youngster who's been around Rios. That is the outfield. Beldre won 4 Gold Gloves. Andrus, very good rangy. Odor. Jimenez over a catcher playing first base tonight, and Chirinos doing the catching. Both of those guys, first baseman, both catchers, but both of them hitting well in the month of June.
Speaking of hitting well in the month of June, how about Steve Pearce? Last night, his first career multi-home run game.
Yeah, well, really has not played a lot. Obviously, a lot of times he's a guy that would play against lefties. And now, because of the fact he's been so hot, playing against everybody. And there's a nice breaking ball. Little slider. So keep the ball down. He's a great high ball hitter. Uses the whole field. That's what he hit off of Saunders. Tried to get a fastball in him the first time, and that was gone. There are the numbers. And so you're seeing all the pitches early on, and nothing wrong with that.
Nick Martinez out of Hialeah, Florida, just outside Miami.
It's the haunts of Robert Andino, who played for the Orioles. He comes from that area. Over by the airport.
And a good take there, and it's 2-2. And when it came time to choose a college, it's kind of amazing that a kid from South Florida, all the great college programs in Florida in the warm weather, he decided to go to New York City, and he went to Fordham University in the Bronx. And he was a second baseman in college. He pitched a little bit out of the bullpen, but he was an infielder. As Pierce grounds it foul down the line. And one of the reasons he ended up at Fordham, in high school, he went to Bellin Jesuit Prep High School. And the Jesuits who ran the school, in trying to help him find a college, they looked at Jesuit universities. And he had offers from Georgetown and from Fordham. They're both Jesuit universities, and he went to Fordham because they gave him the most money. He got the best scholarship offer there. So
makes sense to me. Got an education.
Yep.
And got to play a little bit.
2-2 pitches fouled off. So he leaves Florida, wanted to experience the Northeast. He knew Florida. He was there his whole life. So another adventure. And he goes to Fordham and ends up getting drafted. And here he is in the big leagues.
Well, he raced through the minor leagues. And as you mentioned, he wasn't even on the 40-man roster. I mean, 23-16 with a low ERA, 3.30 ERA. There's another good moving fastball. So you see, not overpowering. And one of these guys, I mean, his second year, and that was Hickory, A-ball. 117 in the third innings, but 121 hits, but didn't walk a lot of guys, and almost a strikeout per inning. The same the next year, almost a hit per inning. Didn't walk a lot of guys, almost a strikeout per inning.
This will be the 8th pitch in this at bat, and this is another thing the big league hitters do: prolong at bats, check swing, and appeal. He did not go.
Well, that's when you're strong, and because most guys, and again, it's not if you break your wrist, it's how far the bat travels. And take a look. So again, you easily could have called him out.
Sold it well.
Well, I don't know what Toby Basner was looking at, but he definitely, that bat went a long, long way on a good slider.
So 3-2 to the first two batters. And Pierce fouls it off again.
Yeah, Riss runs it in on his fist. Well, he got Nick to chase the ball out of the zone, which Nick doesn't usually do, especially on a guy that tops out at 90, 91 miles per hour.
Skipper got one of those foul balls. Orioles coming off a winning month in June. And a high fly ball to left down the line. Did he do it again? In the corner, and Chu reaches up, and it's gone. It got out in the corner in the first row. Steve Pierce stays blistering hot. And the O's grab a 1-0 lead.
What's he do? He gets to see about 10 pitches. Well, when healthy, and talk about spring training, wind blows out, but he did hit 10 home runs in spring training, not this year, but last year, and then the wrist problem.
Well, our Maryland Lottery contestant of the game, Torrance Prater of Laurel, won $500 for being selected, and she'll win $500 more for every Orioles home run hit in the game tonight. You can play the Orioles scratch-off from the Maryland Lottery for your chance to be a contestant of the game. You can win a trip to see the O's play at Wrigley Field or the MLB World Series. Learn more at mdlottery.com. And Ron Washington is requesting a challenge.
Well, there's no challenge because the ball goes off the glove. It hits the foul pole. That's a home run.
Maybe they just want to make sure it was fair.
Well, it was fair.
Yeah, this will be a home run.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it's just. I think this is standard fair. I don't know even if Ron Washington said anything. Chu had to go a long, long way. You could see him find the wall and then right off the webbing of his glove. He thinks he has it, but he touched the ball in fair territory.
Well, this is going to be quick.
Well, you would think so.
And it's a home run. So the crew chief Jeff Nelson with Laz Diaz, the home plate umpire. Well, the umpires doing their job just to make sure.
Well, that's a tough call, and they painted the bottom of the pole black to kind of differentiate. You got a yellow line, then you got a black pole, and then the yellow pole going up after about a foot or so, 13, 14 inches. Then you also have fans out there.
Yeah, and that guy got the ball. It just came out of the glove right to him.
Yeah, maybe his son was all happy. Well, there you go. How did you pick those seats? They're opportune seats. Didn't even need your glove. Might need your glove here if he hits a rocket out there like he did last night.
Well, this is what you like to see, trending upward.
Trending upward. Well, what I like is that, the great thing about pitching at home is that you try to put a number up, which is 0, and McFarland was able to do that, and then here come the Orioles. That's the home field momentum. You can do it on the road. You can try to take, your offense. You go out there, and, you get to hit first and put some runs up on the board, quiet them down, and then you go out and do your job. So different ways of maintaining and keeping momentum. The changeup or sinker. I guess it's pretty good sink and fastball. Great movement. I mean, not too many guys' fastballs move like this. But what happens is when you get to see 10 pitches and then you have to throw a strike because Nick Martinez is young, but he knows this lineup. He knows where they're hitting. So he didn't want to walk Pierce, and again, he's so hot that he makes him pay for it.
So ahead of Jones, 1-2. And it's a little bit low. Well, Adam in the month of June, 348 and 20 RBIs. He is second in the American League in base hits now with 103. Only Jose Altuve of the Astros has more base hits than Adam Jones. And he fights it off to stay alive.
Well, Altuve had a nice little month of June. 411.
He's amazing.
Leading the American League in stolen bases.
They're 2-2 the count on Jones. Nick Martinez trying to get through this first inning.
So a lot of pitches. It sounds like he's wild. It's just Orioles are fouling balls off. He's around the zone. 21 already. And only one out here.
Jones to center field. That chases Robertson back. Backpedaling now. And he's got it for the out and 2 men down. Oh, Jeep inside the numbers. And the Orioles in the month of June set a franchise record 46 home runs, the most they've ever hit in any month of June going back to 1954. And you can see how many more they hit than the Tigers. Now in the month of June they scored over 62% of their runs off those home runs. And we asked the skipper Buck Showalter, is he okay with that, or is it a concern they're so reliant on the home run?
You're always trying to play to your club's strengths, and that's one of ours. But we all know the really good pitchers don't give up many of those. You know, when pitching's on top of its game and hitting's on top of its game, pitching wins.
And I think that's a reference, Jim, to as you get late in the year when you're contending and then hopefully into the postseason, the pitching begins to dominate. And if you rely on the home runs and don't get them, tough to score runs. But right now, they are scoring them in baskets fulls.
Well, that's the old good pitching stops good hitting.
Nelson Cruz rips it to the gap in left center field. Back it goes, and that ball is gone. That carries into the bullpen.
Wow. Another wild home run. I mean, it looked like it was a double. Well, there's a changeup, and well, you got Markakis, who was red hot in June. You get him out, but Pierce homers. Then you get Jones, who was red hot, out in June, and then Cruz comes up.
And Torrance Prater from Laurel has won another $500 in the Maryland Lottery contestant of the game. So let's see. We're still in the bottom of the first. She's up to $1,500.
So let's see. He's faced 4 batters. He's a fly ball pitcher, 2 fly balls and 2 home runs. It gives you an idea that doesn't really play well. I mean, it's getting warmer. We saw over the weekend home runs. I mean, watch how hard this ball is hit. The target's in, the changeup's in the middle of the plate, and then you're ducking out of the stands. I mean, it's just a line drive that just carried right out of here.
Well, they had it home run. It's his birthday.
Happy birthday
to you.
And we'll see
34 years old today.
Yeah, we'll see how Martinez matches up against Chris Davis, because he can't. You know, what they do with Chris is pound him in, but at high velocities. There's your runs via the home run. The Rangers, with all the injuries and the fact that Fielder and Moreland and whatever, they're down.
Look at the last 10 games, 73% almost of home runs. Wow.
And one of your preeminent home run guys has been in a little bit of a slump.
Yeah.
Not that he didn't hit home runs. What, he hit 6 home runs in June? But the average down. Certainly not hitting like he would like.
Well, Cruz has certainly been consistent. That's his league leading 26th home run. He began the day tied.
And then you get a tight strike zone. So that doesn't bode well for the young guy. I mean, that was a big curveball. Kind of came over the middle of the plate. This has called a couple of pitches high, some low.
Well, the Orioles now have 31 multi-home run games on the year. They were tied with Toronto coming into today for the most in Major League Baseball with those 30.
Well, last 58 games, 31 wins. They have homered in all the wins.
Yes. And there's a strike 3 call as Chris Davis thought he had ball 4. So the inning comes to an end. A productive inning for the Orioles. Steve Pearce keeps it going. 2 home runs last night. Hits number 10 tonight. And then Nelson Cruz on his 34th birthday rips it into the bullpen for a 2-0 lead. #1 catcher. He is catching base stealers at 52%, an astonishing number. And prior to the game, Buck Showalter was asked, why all of a sudden is Caleb Joseph so good gunning down base stealers?
But Caleb knew that was the last piece, because you talk to pitchers about him wherever he's been, they all talk about how much they like throwing to him, which means that he's engaged regardless of how he's doing offensively in the game calling, which is really what pitchers ask. Feel like regardless of what's going on, you're into their outing. But he's a late bloomer.
Well, and as far as game calling, Jim, as a former pitcher, those are numbers you like.
Yeah, I want to pitch when he catches. Look at that ERA, 2.85.
That's amazing that he had. Now, he was in spring training. He had the benefit of being in spring training with the Orioles, so he did at least get to catch some of these guys some of the time. Nick Hundley was acquired during the season, so he's learning in regular season games. But Caleb did all the work. And if you look back at his career, as a base hit off the bat of Chirinos begins the Texas second inning. Now, last year, he had the huge season at the plate for AA Bowie. 22 home runs, 97 RBIs. But he was playing first base. He was DHing. He was not the everyday catcher. Brian Ward did a lot of the catching there. But he went to spring training and impressed enough that took advantage of the opportunity, and with Wieters out, here he is.
Well, he had Don Werner in spring training, and then you got John Russell, the bench coach for the Orioles, who's a former catcher and a taskmaster. And the one thing also, you have a man, it's great to play for a guy like Buck Showalter, who tells you exactly what he expects. There's no hitting agendas. You know, you have to be able to catch and throw to play at this level, and for me. That's why he's here, and some guys are in the minor leagues. It's as simple as that. And some of the guys in the minor leagues can hit a little bit. But if you can't catch and you can't throw, and if you can't get on the team bus, and in other words, get on the wagon, and Nick Hundley is going to help him, and he has helped him.
Runner goes and past the glove of Davis down the line, off the bat of Jimenez. Heading for 2 is Jimenez. Markakis plays it back in. So Chirinos took off and trying to hit behind the runner. Jimenez hit it right to Davis, but he couldn't glove it.
Well, you're struggling for runs, and you got a guy it's going to pitch to contact, and it should have been an out, maybe even a double play. I don't know if they would have gotten 2, but they might have gotten the lead runner, but they don't get anybody. I mean, Ron Washington's been around the block long enough to know that certain parts of your lineup, you can do this. And Jimenez, as we've talked, these guys hit collectively over 300 as a tandem. Chirinos and Jimenez behind the plate. Now, Jimenez doesn't hit for a lot of power, so that's why you can start the runner. And then they bring Rosales up to the big leagues today.
Ground ball, base hit down the line. Davis was wide of the bag, and Texas is going to tie this game as Rosales goes after the first pitch and slaps it past Davis. 3 consecutive hits to begin the second, and we are tied at 2.
Well, you make a bad pitch, and then the next couple, they just go the other way. And first base is a lot like third base, where it can be a hot position because you're playing so close to home plate. So that's great approach. So again, you can see target in, ball away. If you get the ball in, and here they come to tie it up. So one of the things that I never thought about it, because I was a starting pitcher, even though I did pitch out of the bullpen when I was 19, my first year in the big leagues, is for a lot of pitchers, they always talk about having to get up and down. In other words, so if you're a reliever, not that he hasn't pitched multiple innings, you got to warm up. You have to come in, then you sit around for a few minutes, then you go out and pitch the first inning. Now you have a little bit of a long inning because there were a lot of pitches thrown. They give you a 2-run lead. Now you have to go back out there. For a guy that's been doing it all the time, it really shouldn't affect him, but TJ hasn't done that.
Rougned Odor bloops it into left. Pierce comes in on it, and Steve gets there for the out. Nicely done by Pierce, and one away.
And how do you when you go back and look at some really tough left-handers, and they're finesse guys, and that's the kind of the classification I put TJ McFarland at 90 miles per hour, which is an average fastball. If you looked at Tommy John, or if you looked at even Scotty McGregor, they go, boy, you better hit the ball the other way. So one bad pitch hit to left, and 2 other pitches hit the other way. So that's probably going to be the approach of what the Rangers are going to try to do tonight.
Here's Daniel Robertson, who's getting a start tonight in center field as Leonis Martin gets a night off. And down and in.
And Odor, by not getting him over, you get an out, and they don't advance the runners. So that's huge. But as we mentioned, again, the Rangers, because of all the injuries and lack of home runs, not that they can't score runs, they're just not scoring a lot at this moment.
Rosales at second with 1 down now, and a bouncer towards the middle. Stope is right there, and he'll get it to first just in time to get the hustling Robertson and 2 men down, with Rosales moving to third. Well, we hope you can kick off the holiday weekend a day early on Thursday. We'll have a patriotic-themed fireworks display here at Camden Yards following the 7:05 game against Texas, the finale of the series in homestand. Celebrate the USA with family and friends as the downtown skies will light up all over Oriole Park. Get your tickets now, Orioles.com, or call 888-848-BIRD. Well, McFarland has 2 outs in the inning, and now it's Sin-Soo Choo. Breaking ball just misses. Choo blooped a single in the left leading off on an 0-2 pitch.
Yeah, one of the numbers that really is kind of shocking, and he does have that left ankle injury, is 200 for runners in scoring position, because he's usually a lot better than that.
And the chopper evens the count 1-1.
Yeah, the one thing you still have to like about this inning, I mean, they have a chance to have a 3-run inning if he gets a base hit, is that it's not like TJ McFarland is getting into those hitters' counts. I mean, did make that, I think the first base hit to Chirinos was up, maybe a changeup up that he hit in the left field. Other than that, they just had some good at bats. So you figure if you can get out of here, you just get back and getting into some kind of rhythm.
And a bouncer weakly at the first. Davis will step on the bag, and that'll end the inning. So McFarland gets out of it without any further damage. The pride of Baltimore 2, commissioned in 1988 on this 4th of July week. Our U.S. military, and tonight it is Sergeant Michael Long of the United States Army. Sergeant Long served on active duty for 15 years. He served a tour in Bosnia and had 3 separate year-long tours in Iraq. So thank you very much, Sergeant Michael Long, for your service to our country, and thanks to all of our U.S. servicemen and women around the world. Real nice gesture by the Orioles as they salute a member of the U.S. military as their guest here every home game. 4th of July coming Friday, so another birthday for our wonderful country.
The Orioles will celebrate it in Boston.
Here's J.J. Hardy leading off, and we are now tied at 2. Scope and Flaherty will follow against Nick Martinez, who needs to pitch a little better to honor that uniform number. And there's a strike to JJ.
Well, he's kind of like I was. I mean, a little bit older, except they threw him right into the fire because of the injuries. He started in the bullpen, spot starts along the way, which is actually probably more difficult because back then there weren't. I don't even think there were pitch counts my first year. Harry Pekin, if you could throw hard, that was Harry the Cat was a pitching coach. He never counted pitches.
0-2 on Hardy. And it's taken high. 1-2. And it's a short. Elvis Andrus backs up to play the hop, making the throw longer, but he gets it there. And 1 away. Our Orioles moment in history tonight is brought to you by Volkswagen. And how about 1957? And you know George, right?
Well, George Zerverink pitched for the Orioles, and then he sold me my first life insurance policy.
After he
I took part of my bonus, and then I used it for my first house. So thank you, George.
So he and
George
Frank Zuppo, the first Z battery in Major League history, as the Yankees beat the Birds that day in 1957, 3-2. And then in 1982, Cal Ripken Jr. was moved from third base to shortstop by Earl Weaver. Now, at the time, that was considered a questionable and controversial decision because Cal at 6'4" supposedly was too tall to play shortstop.
Yeah.
Well, he proved that wrong.
Earl saw offense and 3-run home runs.
Yep.
And he knew he could figure out how to play shortstop because he was a terrific athlete. Great soccer player, basketball player, you name it.
So Mark Belanger gave way to Mr. Ripken, and Mr. Ripken eventually ended up in Cooperstown. Scope with a count of 1-1. And there's a base hit for Jonathan. So his bat is really starting to come around.
Well, if you throw him strikes, he's a good hitter. And what happens is you get a young guy, throws him a good slider, gets a foul ball, comes back with a sinker in the middle of the plate, and doesn't miss that. It's the guys that really know how to pitch. They run the ball in on him. Most young guys, if you talk to, and I have conversations all the time, I said, what's your strength? He goes out over the plate. But if you watch Jonathan, when you have a guy that's a veteran, maybe throwing fastballs up and in, he swings at him. Sliders down and away, he swings at him. So he's learning. I mean, he's learning what his hot zone is. Why would you be swinging at something that's not your hot zone until you get to 2 strikes? Ryan Flaherty's the same way. He's a much better fastball hitter. They're going to try to get him out with changeups and curveballs, but do they call you out on strike 1 or 2? No. So there are going to be times where sometimes you just have to take some pitchers. Pitches early in the count to get to what you want to hit.
Check swing, and he went too far. 1-1 the count. Now Ryan is just 1 for his last 16. The 3-run home run he hit Sunday when he got in the game late against Tampa Bay.
And he hit it off the lefty, off of Cesar Ramos. And did he ever hit it? He's got very good power. Another, very athletic.
And to center field. Oh, Andrus is there, right off the fist. Never made it to center field. And 2 men down.
Yeah, off the bat, or the sound, and it was a line drive, but Well, the bats, you know, he was talking today, you know, the bats are now made of maple, and he uses an ash bat because he thinks that there's actually almost like the ball just kind of comes off it. But if you hit it up by the trademark, the ball doesn't have much velocity.
I think there was a gust of wind there.
Yeah, no. Wind shear. Yeah, I'm with you.
Here's Caleb. And the scope at first now with 2 down.
One of those, you know, hit in the center field. No, the shortstop is there to.
Sometimes the center fielder gets fooled by the swing.
Well, if you were doing radio in Pittsburgh. Were you in Pittsburgh?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, I
had to think.
Yeah, you're up 4,000 feet. It is hard to get. I mean, this is very nice. We don't have the.
Are you on the Nat series?
What team is that?
Washington.
No.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say that booth is even higher.
I've been there. Oh, I've been in that ballpark, which is a pretty ballpark. I mean, yeah. But Camden Yards, we're a little lower. We're not as low as the press people are. They got the best seats.
Well, Caleb with a good eye gets the count to 3-0.
Yeah, really had a nice at bat last night. You know, sacrifice fly, took some really close pitches, finally got something. I'm not sure that Buck's going to give him the green light here, nor is Nick Martinez, because I just think when you got a guy, Nick Markakis, hitting so well, we got Martinez, Markakis behind him, probably going to see if he can walk him, get Nick up there.
And then takes a strike. But Caleb on the homestand, 4 out of 14. He is 1 for 3 off Nick Martinez. He started against Texas in that start by Martinez on June the 4th at the ballpark in Arlington. 3-1 is hit deep to left field. That ball's got a chance, and that ball is gone. It's in the first row. Caleb Joseph hits his 3rd, and a clutch 2-out, 2-run home run, and the Orioles are back on top. And the Maryland Lottery contestant of the game, Torrance Prater, has now won $2,000 for being the contestant of the game. What a blast off the bat.
Well, you talked about you know, the offensive numbers, 22 home runs last year. It was Double-A, but he's always had power. It's a big kid. But that's 3 home runs now in what, about 11 or 12 days. Didn't play in all those games because Nick Hundley does do some catching. But the old classic 3-1 count. Gets a fastball, supposed to be a sinker. We told you that Martinez, even though he only throws 91 and he does have a sinker, is still a fly ball pitcher, and that's not a good way of pitching. The recipe will not work here at Camden Yards because, again, it's centeritis. So again, you're looking for it, and he golfs it, and he hooks it. I mean, it's like, you know, Wimbledon's going on, a little topspin. But this time it's a little bit long, gets over the back edge of the court.
Chu looked like he expected that ball to hit the wall, and he was ready to play the carom, and it just disappeared.
Well, tiny ballpark, and when the weather gets warm, the ball has a tendency to carry.
There are 3 home runs in the game for the Orioles after they hit 4 last night. Nick off the end of the bat to shallow right. Rios in on it, calls off Odor. And the inning ends with a single by Jonathan Scope and a 2-run home run by Caleb Joseph, his 3rd on the year. And for Joseph, his 2nd on the homestand, has put the Birds on top. Brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Find Southwest Airlines fares online only at southwest.com. And by Luna. For beautiful new carpet, hardwood, and laminate, call 877-241-LUNA. The Pride of Baltimore 2, commissioned in 1988 as a sailing memorial to her immediate predecessor, the original Pride of Baltimore, which was tragically sunk by a white squall off Puerto Rico back in 1986, taking her captain and 3 crew members with her. Both ships were built in the inner harbor as reproductions of the 1812 era topsail schooners. And the Pride of Baltimore 2 in the harbor. Nice day to be on a boat. With that sea breeze.
If there is no breeze, you would like to hope some way the boat would move so you would get some kind of breeze. Captain Hunter, there's a ring to that.
Well, my dad was in the Navy, so I remember some of the lingo. He was on an aircraft carrier.
Really?
Yes. The USS Kula Gulf, which is no longer around. And Andrew shows Button takes low ball 2. So now let's see if McFarland could have a shutdown inning after his team got some lead back. Andrews bounced into a force play on a nice diving stop. Just inside, ball 3.
Yeah, the other thing, of course, when you relieve, a lot of times you come in for a righty. They have a lot of lefties, so you match up a little bit better. Ron Washington getting the guys in there because he knew McFarland hoped that he wouldn't pitch that long, but he knew he was starting. You got a bunch of right-handers and a few left-handers in there. Now, it doesn't mean that if he's pitching to his strengths that he can't get you out, because he can't.
And a high chopper towards short. Hardy's going to have to hurry. The long throw, he gunned it and he got him. And one away here in the Texas third. Fans, you can win a chance to have lunch with Buck Showalter, courtesy of Masson. Just be sure to follow Masson on Twitter and use the hashtag MassonOrioles in your tweets all week long to be automatically entered to win. Let's see, 1, 2, 5 ground ball outs already, and the one that got by Davis might have been a ground ball out, but it was hit too hard. It skipped past the glove of Chris. That's a good sign for McFarland here early on.
He made one bad pitch for 2 runs, and Chris Davis usually catches the ball that he didn't. They still probably would have gotten 1 run because Rosales right over the first base bag, another right-handed hitter, great at bat. So you can't do much about those, so you just pitch on. Of course, you give up 2, they get you another 2. There's a changeup. So, for TJ, and this is a great luxury that I always felt that sinker ballers had, is they can get back into counts. I mean, this is a changeup. Again, using all his pitches. And it's a good one. Except for Caleb Joseph. Foul balls off the body, the mask. It's a nightly event.
Slicing towards the right field corner, and it's back foul.
But see, you can always make a pitcher 2 and not where you want it. And if you're a sinker baller, the ground ball can get you a couple of outs.
Buck Showalter was asked before the game about the next time this turn in the rotation comes up. There's the doubleheader, and Bud Norris being on the DL is why the Orioles are in this predicament. And Kevin Gausman is going to pitch tomorrow night for Aberdeen, which would put him in line to possibly start on Sunday. That's the next time it'll come up. But Buck also said maybe TJ McFarland makes the decision more difficult for us, and he's already here. So he's planting the seed that possibly TJ could make another start.
Well, he could. But wait, if tomorrow's going to be Wednesday.
Yeah, but it's going to be a short start.
Yeah, but I hate that. I mean, I know they run this organization. It's just harder to do that.
Breaking balls low, 2-2.
It's my opinion, and they'll do whatever they want, and they have every right to do that. But they better get Kevin Gausman up here on a regular plan to see if he can pitch at this level, because he's got the best arm out there. He's not the best pitcher because he doesn't have the experience. And give him a chance. Now, it doesn't mean that TJ can't come back and do a good job, because he can. But sooner or later, you want him pitching every 5th day And you know, I understand the schedule hasn't presented that, but I don't want to mess with Kevin Gosnell because he needs to learn to pitch at this level, and I still think he can win and do that at the same time. And you want him to get his innings because you want him to be able to pitch close to 200 innings next year.
Jonathan Schoop can't get to it. Soft line drive the other way, so Rios is on him with a 1-out single.
Yeah, doesn't get many hits that way. 15th hit of the year to right field.
And a 1-out single for Texas. Don't forget the voting will end on Thursday for the All-Star game. Adam Jones has tightened up that gap even more to earn a starting spot in the American League outfield. Nelson Cruz and Matt Wieters still remain in the lead for their positions. Of course, Matt is hurt, but he's still leading at catcher. Nelson at DH. So vote now for Adam and the rest of the O's. Go to Orioles.com/vote-orange. You can vote up to 35 times with each valid email address. You could earn ticket discounts, a chance to win an autographed All-Star game jersey, and even a meet and greet session with Adam Jones. Also tickets to an upcoming game. So visit Orioles.com/vote-orange today. And here's the danger zone. Beltre. Rios chase back.
Well, how about his numbers? I mean, with the pop-up, he's still 8 for his last 16 against the Orioles with 3 home runs, and he's driven in 6. And then that's coming off a 392 June.
He is second in the league in batting at 331.
Now, we saw it even last night. You know, it was a tough game to really focus on because of the Orioles' early lead. But you know, he hit a double to right center field, so he's using the whole field. And we were looking through the press guide and talking about how good he's been. Really, since he came to the Rangers, only Miguel Cabrera with RBIs and total bases and home runs in the American League that's been better, and that's real select company.
And he lays off a high pitch 1-0. He's got 4 100 RBI seasons. He's had a 200 hit season. He had 48 home runs his last year with the Dodgers in 04. Then he went to that big ballpark in Seattle. The 1 year in Boston, he found his stroke and parlayed that into a nice long-term deal with Texas.
Well, his hitting instructor was Dave Magadan, who's now with the Rangers. He found right field. So if you hit in that lineup, and with Pedroia and even David Ortiz, left-handed hitter, hitting the ball the other way, you learn that. And the interesting thing about going to Boston, you think automatically short, the Green Monster and a right-handed hitter, but you still have to use the whole field in that ballpark, and that seemed like he became a much more adept hitter. If you pitched him away, he hit it that way and hit over 300.
Chop towards third. Flaherty gloves it to second. Schoop back to first, and there's a double play. And nicely turned up the middle by Jonathan. So base hit and none left. We're led to the bottom of the third. Birds come to bat up by 2. Nelson Cruz visiting with his former teammates. How do you win? You win with pitching and defense. Oh, yes, and you win with the long ball. Steve Pearce continues his home run barrage. Nelson Cruz hits one out on his birthday, and Caleb Joseph with a 2-run shot to break a 2-all tie. The fans are happy, That fan's got a souvenir, and the Orioles have a 4-2 lead as we go to the bottom of the third. And a beautiful shot from our overhead camera behind home plate. I love that shot.
It's one of the best camera angles in baseball. Shows you so many different things.
And there it is. Bolted down. I guess it's a little dangerous to man that one up there, right? So it's you get a breezy night.
Well, we have guys that could do that.
Mike could do that.
Mike could do that. We could get him a parachute and get him a
bungee cord.
He's lived his whole life on a high wire, Max. So I know he could go right on that roof. Once.
Steve Pearce homered his first at bat. That gave the Orioles a first inning lead. His 10th home run on the year. He's now hitting 4 straight games and has 3 home runs and 6 RBIs in those games. The Orioles now, as Pearce pops it up center of the diamond. Andrews calls off Odor, and Elvis has it for the out, 1 away. The Orioles now 31 multi-home run games. The Blue Jays had a day game today and won. They had a multi-home run game, so the O's are tied with Toronto for the most in Major League Baseball. But the Orioles now, Jim, multi-home run games in 5 consecutive games.
Well, the Jays still have 110. The Orioles have, what did they hit tonight? 3? So they have 99.
The O's have 103. And Toronto hit 2 today, right? 2.
Yes. So they have 110.
There's Adam Jones, who flied out his first at bat. Adams got a 4-game hitting streak going, facing young Nick Martinez, the 23-year-old.
Well, made a nice pitch to get Pearce out right on the fist. There's low and away. And I was reading an article. I mean, we didn't get much from it, but he was talking about his struggles. He said he was trying to nibble, made some adjustments with Mike Maddox, his pitching coach. So, and again, you can make adjustments and still pitch here at Camden Yards, and sometimes it's hard to tell whether the adjustment's working or not. And he identified the problem and figured he was nibbling too much.
Jones lays off. It's 2-1. Well, he was on the AA Frisco roster when the season began. And then he was called up on April 5th to make a start. He pitched to a no decision at Tampa Bay, and then he was sent right back the next day to AA. But then he was called up on April 22nd. He's been here ever since. As Adam hits it off the end of the bat to right, Rios is there. And 2 men down here in the Oriole third. Time now for all fans to tweet their photos using the hashtag #MassonFanPhotos for a chance to have it shown in a future broadcast, all brought to you by AT&T.
So again, already this inning we see, I mean, the Orioles are so aggressive, and why not? You're hitting home runs, but Pearce swings the ball up and in before he gets the 2 strikes. Adams swings a 1-strike low and away slider, and that's how pitchers can kind of get back into their rhythm, even if they're 23 and they're major league rookies.
Nelson Cruz takes high in the power zone for Nelly.
And number 3, and that was a low changeup, and he waffled it to left center field.
Upstairs, ball 2.
Well, you got to pitch in. That's how we got Pearce out. He homered. It's not that you're trying to hit him. It's not that hitters like that when you're up around the head.
Well, Nelson with that home run now has 10 home runs at home to go with a 16 on the road. So finally in double digits both. Hit it here. And he popped Cruz up. Shallow right. Odor out. Rios in. Rios calls, and he's got it. And a 3-up, 3-down inning for Nick Martinez. 4th inning coming up at Camden Yards. 4-2 O's. PNC Bank for the achiever in you. And what a season Chance Sisco is putting together for Delmarva. He was a South Atlantic League All-Star. In his last 10 games, hitting a robust .462, 3 doubles, 10 RBIs, and 6 runs. And how about second in the Sally League in batting at .338? Jim, he's 19 years old and was just drafted last June.
Second round. Top 10 prospects for the Orioles.
So he is getting it done, and his name is on the map. And Alex Murphy, who was drafted in the same draft, is right behind him at Aberdeen, and he's hitting well. And they both came out of the same draft last June. So
we like that.
Now we know why Gary Racich didn't draft a catcher this year.
Well, Gary Racich also he said that the Orioles didn't draft to the 3rd round, but he said he thought they got like eight pitchers. There we go.
Sing the song. Orioles magic.
No, Jim. No, don't go there.
Well, you were singing Happy Birthday.
Yeah, well, because it was appropriate. Sorry about it. Just came out.
Chirinos takes ball 1. Chirinos got the rally in the second going with a leadoff single.
Yeah, just got it looked like a changeup and pulled it in between 3rd and short. And there's a nice little breaking ball. Well, when you can pitch backwards, and that's backwards as you get behind, and we talk about it all the time. For a lot of pitchers, they don't want to become predictable, so he drops a curveball off. And I'm sure Chirinos was probably looking for something, maybe a sinker, something a little bit harder. And then they throw another one and miss. So again, get the first guy out. If somebody gets on, again, the double play ball because you throw grounders. And
he's got 6 ground outs, and he's got 7 outs off those ground balls. One was a double play. Well, speed pitch there, and a swing and a miss, 2-2. Chirinos out of Venezuela. The Rangers got him because of his defense. They thought he'd be a real good backup catcher to Giovanni Soto. Soto's been hurt all year, and he's getting most of the reps. And McFarland gets him. First strikeout, one away.
Well, they threw him a great sinker at a 2-1 count, which is hitter's count, but the ball moved and sunk under the bat, and then he comes back with a good changeup. Real good changeup. Just to watch how far he gets out in front. I mean, already the swing, the bat through the strike zone before the ball gets there. And the good changeup is, yeah, it's about location. We saw Cruz hit a home run on a changeup, but you got to sell it with arm speed. So if you can throw a sinker at 89 and a changeup like that at 82 and locate it, you will make a lot of money. You will get a lot of hitters out.
It's kind of amazing how the changeup plays so much better in the big leagues than it does for the pitchers coming along in the minor leagues. The Orioles have made an effort, especially with their top prospects, their starting prospects, to impress upon them that they must learn the changeup and have that as part of their arsenal if they expect to pitch here. And I know one prospect, Tim Berry, is working very hard on that at Double-A Bowie.
Well, I think Tim Berry, after watching him throw in spring training, is going to figure it out.
Flaherty charges, plays the hop, and 2 down in the Texas 4th. Next Wednesday, July the 9th, when the Orioles host the Nationals, all fans will receive a special Nick Markakis Orioles t-shirt. Now, don't miss this unique design. It features a silhouette of Nick, made up of words shared by his teammates on what the veteran outfielder means to them. Show your Birdland pride during the Battle of the Beltways. Get your tickets now online at Orioles.com or just call 888-848-BIRD. There's Nick. Adam Rosales will take low, 1-0.
Yeah, he helped that rally. He sliced one at first at bat since being called up right inside the first base bag. Because the Orioles know all about him. He's always had pretty good numbers against him when he was playing for Oakland.
.298 career hitter against the Orioles. He had been playing at AAA Roundwide. So he is the 43rd different player that Texas has put into a game this year. Fouled off the other way, 1-2.
I mean, I was going through the entry list. I mean, you know, you lose Fielder, who almost plays, what, 158 to 162, and that's probably 30 home runs. Then you lose your second baseman, Jurickson Profar. They thought he was going to be started. Even Kevin Kosmanoff, who he's had a back problem. He's going to start rehabbing, but he had a great start because of all these injuries. Donnie Murphy, strained neck, he's back. And then you meet Keith Moreland, hit 23 home runs. Ankle problem, he's gone for the year. So there's your offense. Not to mention you lose some guys.
Swing and a miss at another outstanding changeup, and T.J. McFarland has his first 3-up, 3-down inning. Mid-4th at Camden Yards, the O's have the lead. Cross Blue Shield will contribute $50 to support Be More for Healthy Babies. The Orioles so far have drawn 208 walks, so a total of $10,400 will be donated. Care First Blue Cross Blue Shield encourages each of us to take that first step towards a healthier and a more active lifestyle. And young Orioles fan at the game having a good time. Looks like he's got a
little bird,
stuffed animal bird there.
And he's bouncing around like a little bird.
Chris Davis takes a strike. Hardy and Scope will follow. Chris called out on strikes his first at bat. He's now 0 for his last 16 with 7 strikeouts. And he is 3 for 23 on the homestand. And Martinez misses up and in.
Okay, now let's get hot. Let's hit a line drive right back up the middle. And that's when he's hitting best. He doesn't hit line drives all the time, but stays through the ball, left center field. That's why when he came through the Rangers organization, they thought he'd be the best.
And a tapper right back to the mound. Martinez, the soft toss, and one away here in the 4th. But when the Orioles win, everybody wins. All season long, when the Orioles win and score 5 or more runs, as they did last night, you get 50% off regular menu pricing when you order online at papajohns.com by entering the promo code Orioles5. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's, valid at participating Baltimore area Papa John's. Here's J.J. Hardy, who bounced out the shortstop, hit it hard, but right at Andrews, his first at bat. And last night he joined the home run parade.
He was talking about the fact, I mean, his second of the year, hit one up in New York first after you had it 338 at bats, which is just one of the more amazing numbers ever. That a guy that hit more home runs than any shortstop in baseball the last 3 years would go that far, but did have back problems. He was talking down at the cage. He said, that's probably the best I felt last night. You know, because it did hurt his back. Just seems like maybe a little bit more rhythm at the plate.
And he rips it down the line. So he's pulling the ball. Shin-Soo Choo gets to it quickly to hold him to a single.
Yeah, and then, you know, then you get a great pitch to hit. I mean, that's a lazy hanging slider. And if you're Nick Martinez and you've been around the league, you know that could have been a home run very easily because it was up in the zone and he's just all over it.
66 pitches so far. And there's the breakdowns.
Well, he had retired 5 in a row, so you see a lot of fastballs. And then sometimes it's not that big a mystery. You make bad pitches, good hitting ball clubs, strong, big hitting ball clubs like the Orioles hit home runs, and you make better pitches, and hey, you get outs. Not always, but if he pitches for the next 8-10 years, he's going to find it out. And you're always talking about the quality of your pitches, the execution of staying out of the middle of the plate, changing speeds.
His ERA as a starter coming into this one, 5.54. And Jonathan with 2 good takes to get ahead 2-0.
So now critical, well, to some degree, it's not like, brain surgery, but you want to look for a good pitch here. Where's your hot zone? This is one of what the good hitters do, and if it's not in that zone, you take it because you're still ahead in the count.
And he rips it up the middle for a base hit.
So that's kind of what I was talking about. You wait for a ball. I mean, if you ask him, and I do all the time, what's your hot zone? Out over the plate? Well, look where he got it. Boom. That's 2 in a row. And then what happens is, they're going to either have to pitch differently, and they're going to try to run the ball in on you and change speeds and throw you sliders, and you'll get to see those and you'll adjust. But if you can, when you get into the hitters' counts, have quality at bats, and that certainly was one of them, that average is going to be a lot closer to 300 than it is to 200. And that's the way you learn how to hit at this level.
And he's got 3 consecutive multi-hit games now with his 2 hits here tonight. Brian Flaherty lined out to shortstop. A blistering line drive back in the 2nd inning.
Being facetious.
That's how I saw it.
Actually, that's how you called it. You didn't see it that way. Well, it's funny. I mean, you thought the ball was going to center field, and that happens all the time when we're up here because it's a different perspective. But one of the hardest things when you're pitching is when a guy does hit the ball back up the middle to tell how hard it's hit. Now, sometimes you just know.
Ball bounces into.
Sometimes you get fooled a little bit. Oh, here we go. Now, young hitter, young in experience, and Ryan Flaherty. Martinez has gotten behind him. Where's your strength? It's not up and in. It's not a breaking ball. Fastball out over the plate, and he's strong enough just to drive it. I mean, he can hit it out at the right center with the best of them. So have a quality at bat. Get your pitch. Otherwise, take it. There we go. Now you get to hit 3-0. And Dave Magadan, who's the hitting instructor with Texas, one of the great articles in the New York Times, where he was talking about playing with Tony Gwynn, 8 batting titles, Hall of Famer, tragically dying of cancer, but saying if I'd played with him earlier, I would have learned, because he was disciplined. He'd look for a fastball, he'd look for a breaking ball, he would commit himself till he got to 2 strikes. Here we go. Take that one, and now you're probably still going to get a good pitch to hit. Do it on your terms till you get to 2 strikes, and it just makes, to make hitting easier, it just makes it less difficult.
Hardy and Scope on for Flaherty with 1 down. And then he walked him. Orioles have the bases loaded with 1 out.
Now here comes his pitching coach, Mike Maddox. Nobody up in the bullpen. So, the lesson plan already is the fact that the guy walking to the plate, Caleb Joseph, has hit a home run and did that on a 3-1 pitch. But again, the degree of difficulty is, okay, you have a young pitcher who's been struggling, didn't win in June, had her ERA of almost 6 runs a game. And you get Mike Maddox is telling him, hey, make a pitch here. And we saw him do it. And
maybe ask Laz Diaz what he should do. Hey, Laz, you're back there. What do you see?
Yeah, maybe you can help call the pitches. But at the end of the day, you got to make a quality pitch. You got Caleb up here trying to, he doesn't have to get a base hit to get a run in with only 1 out. What we saw him do last night. And Martinez is 1 pitch away from getting out of this inning, and I'm sure that Mike Maddox mentioned that.
So the bases loaded with one down.
So again, who's in trouble here? It's not Caleb Joseph.
And he fouls it off, and here's what he did in the second inning on a 3-1 pitch.
Yeah, and he just golfs it out of here. And what does he do to come up here? Bases loaded. I'm not really sure Nick Martinez has thrown a curveball, and there's your bat speed at 96. He's thrown a curveball over, and that's what he swung at. So now he's behind in the count. Couldn't have been looking for it.
Double play ball. Andrews bobbles the ball, and it's going to cost him an out, and it's going to cost him a run.
Wow.
Elvis Andrews, his 10th error of the year, and the Orioles take advantage of it and add to their lead. It's 5-2.
Yeah, I mean, this is right out of the inning. And Ron Washington, again, he had a very good offensive month of June, but boy, that is tailor-made. You turn it, you get a young guy, you get him back in the dugout, feeling confident about himself. You boot it, don't even get one. You get a run, you get Markakis to the plate, you got Pierce on deck. So Martinez makes a great pitch, the perfect double play ball, the low and away slider. Huge mistake.
Next numbers with the bases loaded in his career. So the bases are loaded. Scope, Flaherty, and Joseph third to first, and the breaking ball is low. Now Caleb will reach on the error, but he will be credited with an RBI because you cannot assume a double play will be turned.
Well, I'll tell you what, everybody, Ron Washington, he can assume it because Andrus is that good.
But Jim Henneman can't.
No.
So it's 3 RBI game for Caleb.
And now you got a veteran hitter that we hope will look for something that he can drive, get in the air. Wasn't looking on the outside corner and takes it. Actually, Martinez has pitched Nick Markakis pretty well tonight. Got in on him 2 times in a row. Tim Bogart, the bench coach, going, how did that happen?
Nick is 0 for 6 in this series so far. And a good take there for ball 2.
Well, you got an opportunity to break the game open. You got a guy that in his second major league start, TJ McFarland, who hasn't started, but did it at the AAA level back in May, but been pitching well out of the bullpen. You got a chance to give him a big cushion.
Huge pitch here on 2-1. Outside, ball 3.
And it's the right pitch. It's just good changeup, but he just floats away. And ideally, you'd like to, if you were the Rangers, you would hope that Nick Martinez would pick up the error by Andrus, but that's hard to do when you're scuffling. This is not a veteran pitcher that with plus stuff and command. It's just not the way it is yet.
Ripped down the line. That's a base hit heading for the corner. Here's Scope to score. Flaherty behind him. Joseph heads to third, and Nick Markakis has a 2-run double. It is 7-2 O's here in the 4th.
Big hit. Smart hitting by Nick Markakis. I mean, jumps all over. He knows it's going to be 90-91. If it's a fastball, he's ready, and that's what he gets. Take a look right here. I mean, it runs back a little bit, but inside middle. Bad head to the ball. The key to hitting. And nobody plays down there. So not only do you get 2 in to make it 7-2, you get runners at second and third, and still only 1 out. Still nobody up in the bullpen.
So Nick now with 31 RBIs, picks up his 102nd base hit of the year.
And now they're going to have to play the infield in, which makes it even easier for Steve Pierce. He's looking, base hit, but get a fly ball.
Down the line, and that is a foul ball. Here's Pierce in the first inning tonight.
Yep. Just over the glove of Chu in left field. Nice effort off the webbing. Third home run in the last 2 nights. So again, it was really kind of a fly ball compared, because we saw 104 last night on one of the home runs, 99 on another.
High fly ball to left, should be deep enough. Joseph will tag. Chu has it. Here comes Caleb. The throw's going to go to third, and Pierce has another RBI. There's a sac fly, and it's 8-2. Sac fly, a very underrated part of hitting.
Well, we were talking yesterday. I said, trying to figure out why the Orioles, the 4 games over 500, 3 going into last night. Why, when the runs are down a little bit, but the pitching's been better, the bullpen's been better. They don't steal a lot of bases, but why they are not playing a little bit better. And one of them was runners in scoring position numbers so good for most of the year. They were down a little bit, and then they were not among the leaders with sacrifice flies.
They're near the bottom in the AL, and
so situationally,
right?
Something you talk about, and so that sounds like it's a negative, but that's reality. You could get better the second half, and then the offense could get better.
That is their 23rd sac fly, but it's number 1 for Pierce.
Yeah.
So 2 down now. Markakis held at second. It's a 4-run inning and an 8-2 game. And here's Adam Jones.
Well, you find out about a guy like Nick Martinez, and I'm sure they know. He's a young kid. He made the perfect pitch to get him out of the inning, and Andrus just couldn't turn the double play. And they'll let him pitch for a while. They did that with Saunders last night. But he's certainly much older, 10 years older, and he got released today, as a matter of fact, or designated for assignment, I would assume.
Well, you look at this inning, and there should have been no runs scored, and instead it's 4, and it's an 8-2 game now instead of a 4-2 game.
So while you recognize it, and don't think the Orioles don't know that, nobody feels sorry for the opposition. It's just the way the game's played. If they don't want to turn the double play, they'll take advantage of it, and Nick Markakis did.
Towards the middle, diving stop there by Odor. From his knees, he throws across, and he gets Adam Jones. So the shift saved another run. What a play by Rougned Odor. Big inning for the O's, taking advantage of the error to put 4 and break it open. PNC Bank, for the achiever in you. By AT&T, mobilizing your world. And by Ocean City, Maryland. Put your vacation days to good use in Ocean City, Maryland. Book now at ococean.com. What a beautiful night here in Baltimore as the Orioles enjoy an 8-2 lead. Took advantage of a big error by Elvis Andrus and TJ McFarland, trying to get the win, which would be his first as a starter in the big leagues. He took a no decision in his only other major league start last year against the Yankees.
Well, you certainly give him the position, and so and then we had a little conversation. It's about pitches and outs, and you don't project ahead. So your mission here in the 5th inning is pretty simple. You just had a big 4-run inning. You need outs. Get them. And it starts with making your pitches, and he's done a nice job of that.
He had a 3-up, 3-down 4th inning on just 12 pitches. He's retired 4 in a row. And he'll deal a little low to Rougned Odor.
No, actually a strike. Allows Diaz with the
late call.
Yeah, late call. Better late than never. Well, what a play he made. Otherwise the Orioles might have scored another run.
TJ has thrown 7 ground ball outs. There's 8 outs on those grounders. He has struck out 2, and probably most importantly, he has not walked a batter. And a tapper. McFarland will have to hurry. Joseph cuts in front. He has no play.
Yeah, he's not going to get him either, even if they almost didn't have a collision course going on. And Odor's going to get to play. Sardinas got sent out because they want him to play. Young guy, Baltimore chop, perfectly situated. Now he is out of the baselines. They've drilled him in the rear end. But that's not a challengeable call.
Nope.
No.
We found that out.
Yeah.
Not sure why.
Well, because from what I got, the explanation from John Russell was that they want to leave a lot of the calls right in front of the umpires to their discretion.
Daniel Robertson now. And a strike.
And of course, if they had the challenge, might have changed that '69 World Series. J.C. Martin out of the baseline. Orioles, my Orioles, don't get the call.
They're still your Orioles.
Yeah, they are.
Towards the middle. Scope knocks it down, keeps it in the infield, but that'll be a base hit.
Yeah, you just fall off a little bit, so 2 infield hits, I mean, right over the pitching rubber. And because McFarland is a very good athlete, he just falls off a little bit. I mean, you're going to see the tail end of it right here. And no, I just didn't even think he'd even get to it. And the ball goes up a little bit off the heel. But again, if you're ready, I mean, if you're Jim Cott with his 16 gold gloves, you gobble that up, turn a double play. But the modern day pitcher, they usually fall off. I mean, right there. I mean, it's right over the mound. I think he almost thought, maybe I don't want to deflect it. They'll turn 2. They don't get anybody.
So 7 hits for Texas. They have the 2 runs. They also have 2 on with nobody out. The top of the lineup up. Sin-Soo Choo. And a strike taken. Ryan Webb for the O's, and in the Texas bullpen right behind him is Aaron Pareda, left-hander.
Yeah, so again, this is not really that you pitched poorly if you're TJ McFarland. It's just the fact that he doesn't start very often, and pitch count a little higher than it normally is. He's looking for a ground ball, and Chu's looking to get on base. And you know, I saw him talking to Tom Grieve, former general manager, player, and he was talking about. They were talking to Chu, and he was saying, you know, boy, I used to think I have a good eye, and they keep calling pitches that are pretty obviously balls. We saw it yesterday, the first. And Tom Grieve said, well, just keep, relying on your good eye. But that pitch was definitely low, and they call it a strike. And now he's got a scuffle.
Ahead 0-2. And a foul back to the left.
Got to do what he did the first time up, which is hit an 0-2 pitch for a base hit. You kind of alluded to it yesterday. You have TJ McFarland, first start of the year at this level. You got to win this game. You got Darvish. Some people thought they might skip him, move him back a day, but he is pitching Thursday. He's been lights out. So you do want to win as many games going into Thursday as you can.
And they called up a pitcher from the minor leagues to start tomorrow, and Tepesh, who was going to pitch, he's going to now pitch Friday.
So they keep Darvish on his regular term.
Right.
They go up to New York to play the Mets.
0-2 on Chu, 2 on and none out. And the ball lifted to left. Pierce was shallow. He's right there. And 1 away in the Texas 5th. TJ needs to get through this inning to qualify for the win. And the pitch count now comes into play with this his first start.
Well, he's always seemed to have a very good presence, and if you play for Buck Showalter, presentation is very important. Obviously, the end result is right up there with it, but you don't see a lot of fear in his eyes. It looks like he's a very confident guy. And again, he's not overpowering, but I think you were talking about the fact that he was a starting pitcher coming through the minor leagues. He understands what starting's about. He's not going to throw a ball by people. He's got to make his pitches.
Double play ball, possibly. Andrews can run out there, back to first, and out at first base. What a turn up the middle. Scope to Hardy and back to Davis. Wow. And the Orioles get out of it. So first and second and nobody down. And the pitcher's best friend, Scope and Hardy, is best friends at the moment. Mid-fifth, 8-2 O's.
Big fourth inning, 4 runs. It all starts J.J. Hardy hanging slider for base hit. Scope's second hit of the night. And then all of a sudden a routine double play ball botched by Andrews. And Nick Markakis with the bases loaded. 2-run double down the line. Orioles would add another run. 4 runs, 4 hits. Sacrifice fly by Pierce. So again, the Orioles, 8 runs on the board. Those are your Geico game highlights. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Nick Martinez actually still on the mound. Boy, should have given up 4 runs. They gave up 8 because of the error. And then T.J. McFarland in line to get the win if he's pitched really well in a spot start.
Yeah, you saw the 68 pitches there. His longest relief outing of the year, 4 2/3. That was June 8th in a game won by Oakland. And he threw 67 pitches in that game. So he's 1 out more, 1 pitch more, and now he qualifies for a win.
Well, there's a school of thought, and a lot of schools across the world, but the school of thought is that sinker ballers, maybe as you get a little bit tired, the ball sinks. Other schools of thoughts would be, okay, when you get a little bit tired, the ball actually stays up.
Here comes Beltre, bare hands, and fires.
Yeah, I knew he had time because his former teammate is running. Nelson Cruz is slow, but anytime a ball is hit to the left side, it means you're usually not going to get out of the box. And Cruz doesn't, and he makes an easy play. And 4-time Gold Glover, great perspective here. So he knows he has time. There you go. Makes it look easy. 4 Gold Gloves.
And that time he didn't even use the glove. You use the glove, you may not get them.
They're on the shelf at home. The Gold Gloves.
Chris Davis now 0 for 2. And a strike on the outside corner. Chris has struck out, called out on strikes on a pitch he thought was ball 4, and then a comebacker.
Yeah, he just has no idea of the strike zone. That he thought that ball was inside. It wasn't. And the other ball he just didn't choose to swing at. And they are working to him, and that's what happens. You have 33 home runs, and then the next year you even have a monster year. I thought he said it very well. He said, it's just career year, but I do think I'm better than I've been, and I do think I'm somewhere where I was 2 years ago, which was a heck of a year. 33 home runs and played a solid defense and drove in runs. The one number, and I know people don't like it, but the batting average baseball put in play, usually it's around 335 to 360, down this year. And then if you start looking at charts, and this is why they put the shifts on, there's right where the second baseman plays in short right field, there's a cluster of balls. So and more so than last year. So they run the ball in him. They try to change speeds, and when he's hitting well, I mean, he really does use the whole field. Left center is a big friend.
3-2 is hit right into the shift, and there's Odor. Well, the Orioles in this series, their bats have been booming as they're trying to make it back-to-back wins over the Texas Rangers. How about 15 runs on 17 hits, and 7 of those hits have been home runs, 9 extra base hits.
Okay, well, when you get pitchers that are scuffling, and that's what Joe Saunders hadn't won a game since the 13th of August last year. Batting average collectively around 375. They did a number on him. Jimenez pitched great, which was a big plus. McFarland has pitched very well tonight, and tonight, Martinez, he gave up some runs, but for a 23-year-old guy, he easily could have caved in after the error, Andrews, because he made a good pitch to get out of the inning, and they did not defend behind him. And that is not how Ron Washington ball clubs usually play.
Well, they have used the disabled list 20 times this year, more than any other team.
Well,
currently have 14 on the disabled list. That's more than any team.
Well, they're 58 errors. Orioles came in with 42.
Hardy pops it up. Andrews in the twilight. And he's got it for the out, and Martinez has a 3-up, 3-down inning. That's his second of the night. We're through 5 at Camden Yards on a lovely night, and an 8-2 Orioles lead.
Start for TJ McFarland, second major league start, first of the year. A lot of ground balls. When he got in trouble, he got out of them. Change-ups, again, lived in that environment around the knees. Didn't walk anybody. So there are the numbers. And again, a couple of runs in the second inning. Very pitch efficient. And that is your Jiffy. Now we're going to have a Jiffy Lube pitching change. The Orioles can check this pitching change off their to-do list. Isn't it time for you to check oil change off yours? Come into Jiffy Lube and keep your vehicle running longer. And he's been able to do that for the Orioles team ERA. Ryan Webb has just been terrific. Last 33 games. ERA, what, about 159. Sinker baller, slider changeup, keeps the ball in the ballpark. You can see right there, lefties. Low average. Well, again, a guy that can pitch every day because a lot of movement. Doesn't have to be overpowering. Anywhere from 89 to 91. Slider probably about 6 miles per hour slower, and the ability to throw strikes.
So he'll possibly get 2 innings here. We'll bridge the gap. We'll face Alex Rios, Adrian Beltre, and Robinson Chirinos. Rios is 1 out of 2. He has really been scuffling as of late. He is just 2 for his last 24.
But when you're 1 for 22 coming in, and you're 1 for 2, you're on a hot streak.
You're trending. And a little bit low, ball 2.
And they get the word on Ryan Webb, and there's T.J. McFarland. And of course, the Orioles now with a 6-run lead. They need 12 outs. That's what the back end of the bullpen, or middle part of the bullpen, depending on how you look at it, is going to have to get out. So they're all saying, hey, make Ryan Webb bring the ball up. Well, maybe Rios forgot about it because he chased one out of the zone. But there's the movement. You think it's going to be a strike around the knees, and the bottom drops out.
And this bullpen is well rested, in part thanks to Ubaldo Jimenez last night by going 8 innings, and then Ramon Ramirez, who was just called up yesterday, pitching the other inning. Ryan Webb has not worked since Saturday.
Well, again, a Sunday game, the meltdown, where they gave up 7 runs in the 1 innings, 9 total after going, what, 30 innings with 1 run?
Yeah.
They got to guys that weren't pitching as well as some others. And,
hard hit ball and a base hit into left field past the diving Harvey.
Yeah, right through the shift.
So Rios is 2 for 3. He's trending and continues to trend. The Orioles will host the AL East rival Yankees. That's a pivotal 3-game weekend series that will begin a week from Friday, July 11th at Oriole Park. Now, tickets are going fast, so don't miss out. An exciting weekend in Birdland. Plus, for each game, fans are encouraged to bring any non-perishable food items and cash donations to the ballpark, all to benefit the Maryland Food Bank. It's all part of the annual Orioles Reach Food and Funds Drive. For tickets, Orioles.com or 888-848-BIRD. And please remember those in need. Every year, the Orioles fans do a great job and tend to break the record from the year before of what is raised and donated.
Yeah, great. The Yankees, a contending team coming in. To watch them help the less fortunate. Yeah, it's amazing. And a lot of the Oriole wives help during that time at the gates. You get to meet some of the players' wives.
I enjoy going out there helping. Get to meet a lot of people. And get to try to get the Yankee fans to throw 20s into the kitty.
Well, considering what it costs to go to Yankee Stadium, they feel like they're
a bargain down there. Foul ball got a piece of Laz Diaz. So Beltre and Joseph are giving him a minute to collect his thoughts. Webb ahead 0-2 with Rios at first. Texas has actually out-hit the Orioles 8-7, but the Birds have the lead.
Yeah, good stay alive hack by Beltre, as we mentioned. I mean, came in 8 for 15 with 3 home runs in those 15 at bats. 0 for 2 tonight. Flaherty turned a nice double play.
Well, Texas, that's another aspect of their game this year, and in part because of the hitters that they've worked in because of the injuries. But they lead the American League in grounding into double plays, and they've hit into 2 tonight. So a couple of times they had T.J. McFarland. They hoped on the ropes, and double plays ended the innings. There's a line drive to center field, falls in front of Adam for a base hit.
Yeah, hanging changeup with a couple of strikes, and so both balls up, and both by the Rangers, and they're trying to get back in the game, and certainly not going away. I mean, last night, as good as Jimenez pitched, they still tried to crawl back, but he just kept getting out of jams. I mean, not a lot of them. So Martinez certainly he may go back out there.
Robinson Chirinos 1 out of 2. Singleton scored in the second inning when Texas got its 2 runs. McFarland had just one 3-up, 3-down innings. So Texas has had base runners in 5 of their 6 innings so far. But with McFarland coming out of the bullpen tonight, at least for tonight, it's back to the regular 7-man bullpen. Madison, Britton, the 2 lefties out there. And chopped foul. That was interesting what Showalter said after the game last night, and he talked about it again today in his pregame presser. Ramon Ramirez reporting here from wherever Norfolk was on the road. And there is Ramon in the bullpen. He pitched an inning last night. He got here, got into his uniform, went right to the bullpen. I guess he went through the underneath. And Buck never met him until the game ended because he came in to begin an inning, so Buck didn't go to the mound. And apparently he shaved before he met the skipper.
Well, what happened, Buck said, I never ever had a guy pitch for me that hadn't met before. So Sheedy, the bullpen coach, said, by the way, he said, first of all, come in, go in, get him out because you're completing the game. And then that little, had a really thin, I don't know what they call it, just like a pencil thing. He said, we don't have that here. So he shaved only part of it. And then he went in to see the skipper.
Hit towards Hardy. Flaherty cuts in front. Only plays at first, but he gets an out. And one away, and the runners move up. Broken back by Chirinos. Yeah, Buck said he thought he grabbed a razor and dry shaved.
He might have. Well, I mean, why wouldn't you? You're back in the big leagues.
And he's a veteran. He's 32 years old. Had a lot of time in the big leagues.
Well, when Buck was telling me the story, I said, well, I remember Robert Andino. Robert Andino, had his hat sideways till he walked by you and you gave him that look. And I said, you do have that look. But he has shaven.
And look at that. He's here one day and he already has Zach Britton's warm-up ball out there. Well, second and third with one down now. There's Jimenez. Bouncer past the mound. A run will score. Scope will take the out. 2 men down. It's an 8-3 game that Webb gets back-to-back outs. All right, so let's go back to last night and see Ramon Ramirez when he came into the game. And oh yeah, I see what you're talking about. Okay.
I mean, very faint. I mean, it's just, but that's against the team rules. And that was Don Cheedy said that's secondary to what your job is. Just come in, get him out, and you will be finishing this game, which he did.
Yeah, look at that. Nice clean shaven. A clean look. Now he is allowed to have a goatee if he wants. He just can't have whatever that was. Towards third and foul.
Well, Ryan Webb, we talked about how good a job he is. Only on 3 occasions, and this is his 34th game, has he given up more than 1 run. He started out 4 of his runs, and he has 10. We were in the first 2 games, and then had another game against Minnesota, 3rd of an inning, a couple of hits, 2 runs, and other than that, it's all solo runs. Great job. I mean, you can just a guy you can count on. But he has to be down. And the first 2 guys got on because he was up in the zone. So you make adjustments and hope you're able to get out of this inning with 2 strikes. P.J. McFarland certainly rooting quietly.
Well, in the Ryan Webb pickup, that's a result of good scouting and aggressiveness by the front office in the offseason. Non-tendered by Miami.
Well, you look around. I mean, that's they make their list, and Dan Duquette and his legion of number people and all that, and you can kind of anticipate who's probably not going to get non-tendered. Then you look at how well they pitched and see if there's any indication they want to come to Baltimore.
And the fact that he's a ground ball pitcher plays well here.
Anywhere.
Popped him up. Shallow right. Scope out. Markakis in. Nick calls. And puts it away for the out. Texas settles for a run on a couple of hits. They strand 1. Heading to the bottom of the 6th. TJ edging toward his first win. join us tomorrow for more O's action. It's game 3 of the 4-game series with Chris Tillman on the mound against the Texas Rangers. Our coverage on MASN 2 begins at 6:30 with O's Extra presented by Geico, and then game coverage at 7 o'clock. We've got all the access you need right here on MASN. Chris Tillman will make the start for the Orioles tomorrow. The Tepesh, we're told, may be bumped back.
And so we know Tillman has pitched well his last 2 starts, and Aaron Pareda up and down from their AAA affiliate, Round Rock. The big left-hander, he comes in. So they go out and get him, minor league free agent. A couple of saves down at AAA. Right here, trying to keep the scoreboard with the Rangers 5 runs down, right where it is.
And here's Jonathan Schoop against Pareda. An 8-3 game for the O's. And Jonathan is 2 for 2 with a couple of runs scored. Jim Presley talks about it all the time. When you look at your lineup, if 6 through 9 is getting it done, you're likely going to win. And if you get RBIs from your number 9 hitter, you're likely going to win. And that has happened here tonight. Both those situations, as Odor throws out Jonathan Schoop for the out and 1 away. Well, as promised earlier in the game, here's our AT&T's fan photo. And a young family here at the game. Baby all dressed up with an Oriole bib. Probably has an Oriole binky. That's a great picture. And 1 down, and here is Ryan Flaherty. And a chopper foul.
Yeah, so Pareda missed all of 2013 because of Tommy John surgery. Boy, amazing the number of guys, and I mean that was an easy 96 he was throwing. Originally signed by the White Sox, actually the 25th pitcher back in 2007. So obviously had a good arm, and still does.
Off-speed breaking ball. Tommy Hunter getting loose in the Orioles bullpen.
Well, the kind of lead at the moment where you need 9 outs, where you can kind of sequence your way, get a guy an inning. Everybody pitching pretty well out in the Oriole bullpen. And did have the 1 bad inning on Sunday, which, considering, as we mentioned, 1 run in 30 innings, and then you give up, the bullpen gives up 9 in close to 5 innings.
1-2 on Flaherty. 1 out, nobody on. And a foul just below us.
Well, he went to the University of San Francisco, so born in Walnut Creek, lives in Pleasanton, right outside San Francisco.
That's a stop on the BART line, right? I think it is.
Probably is. You know, the Orioles will have an opportunity to do that first, right after the All-Star break. So 96, 97.
Here's Nicholas. Now he is supposed to start tomorrow. He took Joe Saunders' spot on the roster, so perhaps he's just getting a little bullpen work in. And a chopper, first base side, races on, and it rolls foul.
Yeah, otherwise going to be a very difficult play for a left-hander to make without making a 180 on the dead run. If it stayed fair, it's going to be a base hit.
So Martinez, 5 innings. Now Pareda. McFarland went 5 innings. Webb pitched the 6th. Looks like we'll get Tommy for the 7th.
And Martinez gets charged with 6 earned runs. If Andrus plays shortstop like he usually does, he only gives up 4. So for a young pitcher, battled him. A good slider.
Foul tip into the glove. Las Diaz said that Chirinos caught it. Flaherty thought it hit the dirt. So he's down on strikes and 2 away. Definitely foul tipped. You can hear it up here.
Well, if it hits the dirt, Chirinos turns around and said, "I trapped it." But did he trap it against the dirt?
No, I don't think so.
No. I mean, I'm sure probably a little bit of the ball touched it because it was in the webbing, but it didn't hit the dirt and then the glove.
Caleb Joseph has a 3 RBI night.
So Paredes got an arm.
So the Orioles have a chance for his unique statistic to continue. Broken bat, line drive, and foul. In games in which he has an RBI, the Orioles are undefeated. 7-0, looking for 8 now.
I was looking at the Rays win in what, 12 or 13 innings.
Yeah, I watched that game when I got home.
But Chris Archer would have been the first pitcher since Walter Johnson to win his first 5 starts against the Yankees if Peralta doesn't blow the save in the 9th inning.
Yeah, Brian Roberts hit a home run with 1 down.
That would have been quite a distinction.
Chris Archer, Walter Johnson.
There you go. Well, when you're throwing 97, why throw balls? That's the way I look at there. Look at 10 out of 11 strikes.
Right field, Rios back on it. Carries to the warning track, and he has it for the out. And a 3-up, 3-down inning. Second straight inning. Birds have gone in order. We're through 6 with the Orioles in front. Well, we'd like to welcome back Fred Naffer, our colleague down the hall on WBAL Radio and the Orioles Radio Network. Fred has missed the last 3 months as he recovered from hip replacement surgery. A little complication there, but Dr. Jacobs got him right. And he's back today. He worked the first 3 games of the year, then had to have the emergency surgery the following week. So good to have Fred back at work here at Camden Yards.
Well, my wife calls him the voice.
The voice.
The voice is back. 3 months on the DL. Tommy Hunter's going to come on, and he's been pitching a lot better. Early on he was the closer. They were kind of rough, maybe a rough ride on the closer, but he got the job done. Not a lot of 1, 2, 3 innings, but again, the one number that's a little bit, it's probably going to change over the second half, and that's the 345 by right-handers. Last year was 146, which is exceptionally low, career number. certainly the capabilities to get both righties and lefties out. The lefties hit all the home runs off him last year, all 11. So again, hunting for outs.
9 outs away from making it back-to-back wins in this series. And it will put the Orioles 5 games above 500.
Now, you guys aren't related, are you?
No. Well, I mean, maybe. Who knows? But
Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, there's some kind of lineage there, right? Let's see. Well, my grandfather came over from Scotland. I'll have to ask Tommy about that.
Yeah. No, great arm. And we talked about Pareda throwing 96, 97. Tommy certainly can do that. And throwing a lot of two-seamers, a little bit more movement. This kid swings the bat. I know he's been struggling, but tonight, infield hit, fly to left. Well, he came in, 4 for his last 29 over the last 10 games. And he dropped all the way. He was hitting over 300.
20 years old in the big leagues. He and Martinez, who started tonight, began the year together at Frisco.
Well, again, it was supposed to be Profar. Switch hitting second baseman, but look at that, BB.
Another base hit.
And 98, he turns around 98 like it's you're down at the batting cages.
Leadoff single for Texas. They've gone 3 up, 3 down just once tonight. Fans, back your birds during the second half of the season and enjoy Major League savings by reserving your Birdland Summer 6-pack. You'll get a ticket to any 6 games of your choice for the rest of the year and savings of up to 20% off the cost of single game tickets. So lock in your seats now for the best games and the biggest promotions of the summer and save. For all the details, online Orioles.com/6-pack or call 888-848-BIRD. Odor is 2 for 3 now. As Robertson fouls it off the other way. Texas has out-hit the Orioles now 10-7. But the Orioles have 3 home runs that drove in 4 runs.
And Robertson has always hit well at the minor league levels. That's your Tucson 285, 23 steals. So he got down to first base really quickly. No contact hitter, works the count. Once again, probably in the big leagues, you can see the protection from the batting helmet, left side of his face.
Yeah, he got hurt defensively. Alex Rios collided with him. So was that as a protection?
Well,
out of Oregon State.
A line drive hitter, contact guy, put it in play, find a hole. They're trying to find more hits.
Fouled off the other way, so 0-2 the count on Robertson. Tommy Hunter, a former first-round pick of Texas.
Yeah, I was talking to Mike Maddox, and he was, and Tommy's name came up, and he said, I understand when we had him, he was learning how to pitch. And did win 13 games for him, went 13-4. Next year, severe groin pull, so he became expendable.
Back to Hunter. Fires to second. Hardy, good footwork. Back to first, not in play.
Yeah, nice almost glove save by the first baseman, Chris Davis. And he runs too well. I haven't seen a lot about him, so get the lead out. You got a 5-run lead. So here's out.
Well, what footwork?
Yeah, well, you're right. And you try to get out of the way, but nice play by Chris Davis to save an error.
Buck was talking before the game about JJ's tagging ability. Sometimes the footwork goes unnoticed around the bag. That throw was pulling Hardy off the base, and he still got the lead runner.
Well, if you don't have quick feet, you cannot be a good defender in the infield.
Chu takes a strike. He's 1 out of 3. And he wears the double ear flap helmet, even though he only bats from the left side. Slow roller towards the hole. Scope. Hardy back to first, and Scope down in a double play. the third double play of the night. And Jonathan Scope quickly got it to Hardy, and the inning ends. So base hit and none left. The Orioles due up, brought to you by Mazda. Markakis 1 for 3 with a double. Steve Pearce, he's homered, and Adam Jones 0 for 3. Seventh inning stretch with the Birds in front. The bat in the bottom of the seventh, and welcome into our booth, Jim Hunter and Jim Palmer. And the Orioles set a franchise record, 46 home runs in the month of June, and they're keeping it up. 3 early home runs to get the early lead.
Well, great combination when you pitch well. Last night it was Jimenez, won his first game here, first game in June, first game at Camden Yards. And then T.J. McFarland, you plug him in, first Major League start of the year, second of his career, and all of a sudden you get him early runs. You hit the 3 home runs, and Nick Martinez looked like he was going to stay in, and then Andrus doesn't turn the double play. So the Orioles get another 4-run inning, and you're just hoping now that it can stand up and you can add a few more runs.
Yeah, in that 4-run inning, the Orioles scored 4 in that inning without a home run. A rare feat as of late, but they got it done.
Well, they wouldn't have scored any if Andrus just turns a routine double play, but he didn't. So you take advantage of it. Nick Markakis, who is coming to the plate here in the 7th inning, a key double down the line with the bases loaded.
And Pareda deals a strike. It's 0-1. Pareda retired the side in order. 8 Orioles have been retired in a row. It began with the Steve Pearce sac fly in the 4th. Ground ball towards short. Andrus will get Markakis and 1 away. Here's Jason Frazier getting loose for Texas in their bullpen, and Miles Mikolas will go against Chris Tillman, coming up from the minor leagues to make that start tomorrow.
Yeah, nice little numbers, and he will face last year's 16-game winner.
And Ron Washington is coming out, and with Pearce, Jones, and Cruz due up here consecutively, he'll go to the right-hander. So a nice job by Pareda, retires all 4 he faces. And here comes Jason Frazier in the 7th. By authority of the Orioles and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Orioles.
So Jason Frazier comes on. Last year, 61 games with Texas. Orioles certainly know him. They saw him in Toronto all the way back to 2004, and then with the he will come on to match up. Ron Washington says, hey, you know what? It's only 5 runs. You never know. And we still have a couple of at-bats to come up.
What a lovely night downtown.
Well, it's cooled off, and there is a little bit of breeze. I mean, it got, I think, what, 93 maybe?
It was 94 when I got here today.
Well, you came from afar. In the sub, the burbs. Even though it's usually warmer
in the city.
But I had to. My daughter Kelly is in with the twins.
Oh, grandpa time.
Yeah, it was. So I met them out in the county, the burbs, and it was actually getting warmer as I was going up 83. And double trouble, Maxine and Henry.
Yeah, but they love seeing grandpa.
Yeah, so we had a good time.
Did they call you Grandpa Cakes?
Pappy. They, my ex-wife lives right near Brooks Robinson's. So Henry announced, I'm going to go see Mr. Robinson and tell him that I had lunch with Jim Palmer and tell him that Cakes said to say hello. I said, you do that. Ring the doorbell. Loud. Knock. Even 7-year-old boys want to see Brooks Robinson.
Yep.
Well, they were here for the statue thing a couple of years ago, so they had a great time. Henry told me he wants to meet all the Orioles, even though they don't live too far from Arlington, Texas.
Right.
Probably know all the Rangers already.
Yeah, I've seen them in the booth down there when you invite them over.
That's right. You do a lot of games in Texas. You're big in Texas.
Everything's big in Texas.
That's right.
1 out, nobody on. And Pierce fouls it back. And that's in a sweep. And a nice grab by a fan. That is Beveridge in one hand. And caught the ball with the other, reaching over. Nicely done. Pierce is now hitting 4 straight games.
With power.
And he's beginning July as he ended June.
Yeah, I think he got a little nervous when you asked him, are you sorry that after we interviewed him after the 2 home runs, was he sorry that June left, ended? He had to look forward to July. Apparently not.
That's right.
Ball players, they didn't leave the park last night thinking, oh, tomorrow's July 1, because you just play so many games. There's a good change-up.
Yeah, it was Tuesday.
Change.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because if you go into the Orioles clubhouse, there's a hallway that leads to the clubhouse, and Buck's office is on the left and the clubhouse is on the right, and there's a dry eraser board there that I guess John Russell takes care of as the bench coach, and every day their instructions for the next day are on that board, so they don't need to have a calendar on the refrigerator. They got John Russell's erase board there. Working back, Andrews at short, and just in time to get him.
Well, he did on one of those Joel Peralta where I think he just sped his windup up, and I think it fooled Steve Pierce. Of course, there were 2 strikes already. It was almost like a quick pitch.
Hope he didn't lose the home run bat. That split in 2. 10 in a row have been retired by Texas since the sac fly by Pierce in the 4th.
Well, that's why you see Frazier again matching up. I mean, certainly you don't want to be down by 5 if you're managing the Rangers and you're on Washington, but you are. And he knows how to manage. He knows how to win. So you may not win tonight, but you certainly want to make everybody think you have an opportunity to win.
Darren O'Day getting loose to come on to pitch the 8th. Well, even that game on Sunday, the Orioles were 1 hit away from having the tying run on deck. After the big 7-run inning for Tampa Bay broke the game open. So until you get that 27th out, you keep playing. Fastball by him. 0-2.
Yeah, a lot of slow stuff and a little extra. And Jason Frazier, this is not derogatorily, he's a little guy. So again, I mean, he hides the ball well, and the ball kind of jumps on you. Because we know Adam Jones can hit the high heater. Maybe not right there, but so again, good fastball, and then he's got something to back it up, which is why at 36 he can still pitch in the big leagues and do it effectively.
0-2 on Jones, 2 outs, nobody on. And outside. Now Tampa Bay is leading in New York again against the Yankees 2-1. The Yankees had all kinds of trouble scoring runs. In that game, Derek Jeter, his 534th double, ties Lou Gehrig for most on the all-time Yankees list for doubles.
Well, isn't that David Price tonight? It is. Well, a lot of people have been having trouble scoring runs against David Price.
That ball's down the line. That's a base hit. And that heads into the corner. And Jones is going to head to second with a 2-out double. So Jonesy, in his 4th at-bat tonight, extends his hitting streak to 5 in a row. And the runner at second with 2 down.
Yeah, smacks a hanging changeup right into the corner. Bunch of tumble right to the bat head. Boom.
And Adam picks up his 18th double and his 35th extra base hit on the year.
Yeah, Price is trying to, for the 6th straight game, strike out 10 or more. That doesn't happen very often when you even do it 5 times.
Talking to Odor, who robbed him of a hit his last at bat.
Yeah, he's got 8 strikeouts with the Yankees hitting in the 7th.
Now Cruz, who homered in the 1st on his 34th birthday, 1 out of 3. Check swing, and he did not go. Toby Pasner at first base tonight.
Well, the Rays, I mean, they're back. They trail the Orioles by 10, but they've gone, what, 12-7. Joe Madden said, and Park Price said, hey, if we're winning, I don't want to leave. They don't need to replace me with some young players, which they'll certainly garner if they do trade him. Good fastball. Boy, if you can locate down and away, it's not that guys don't get their hits, but it's what it makes you have the perfect swing. Of course, to do that, you also have to have a really good windup.
One and one on Cruz with Jones at second. Now the Blue Jays have already won. It was Canada Day today, so Toronto had a day game with Milwaukee and they won it. A couple of home runs in that one. So an Orioles win here, the Birds would remain 1 game back. If the Yankees lose, they fall to 500. They'd be 3.5 out. Cruz fouls it back, count evens 2-2.
No, now you have 30 days till the trading deadline, and so you'll be hearing rampant talk of who's going to do what and who's going to try to do what and who's going to end up doing what.
Well, there's so many teams that are within range. Teams that might have been sellers. Now the obvious sellers might want to take advantage of it and move early.
Well, also, you play 162 games, so if you're going to make a deal and you can make the right deal and you're going to get somebody who's going to be an impact player the rest of the way, wouldn't you rather have them for the whole month?
Oh, absolutely.
If you can do it.
The Orioles did that last year when they got Feldman. That was the first week of July. And they traded Arrieta and Stroke to the Cubs.
Well, the Cubs are really happy with part of that trade.
Pedro actually relieved Arrieta last night, slicing down the line and fouled.
Jake Arrieta has gone 5-1 this year. I was reading some of the comments. Had a no-hitter going into what, the 7th inning, I believe, after having one late in the ball game, the time or two before.
And the hit eventually came with 2 outs in the 8th. It was a Stephen Drew base hit. Chirinos out there talking with Frazier.
I mean, I wrote down a couple of things. He struck out 7 against the Marlins, then 9 against the Phillies, then 11 against Miami, 9 against Cincinnati. That's all in the last month and a half. And then last night's game.
And Detroit beat Oakland again. Athletics just can't beat the Tigers. And Cruz goes down on strikes on a high fastball, and that ends the inning. 2-out double, a man left. Buck and the Birds have the lead as we head to the 8th. Five-game suspension. Ryan Flaherty gets the start tonight. Diving stop and a force at second base for the out. Then he starts a 5-4-3 double play. Jonathan Scope, a nice turn in the middle. So Ryan Flaherty having a nice night defensively as he plays tonight for Manny Machado, who can return on Saturday in Boston.
Oh, that's why he's a utility guy. Darren O'Day comes on. Kind of a same old with Darren. All he does is pitch well. 2-1 record, low ERA. I mean, it's a good thing, of course. Fourth best ERA in the American League at 1.36. Numbers against lefties. Well, they're coming up a little bit, but they're much lower than last year. And pretty much get anybody out. Fastball, slider, and occasional change can change zones. Probably going to top out. Maybe he'll throw a ball 87 tonight, but it's all about deception and location and movement. Former Texas Ranger. Another great acquisition by the Orioles.
A former Texas Ranger followed a former Texas Ranger as Tommy Hunter pitched ahead of Darren. And the former Texas Ranger made the final out of the 7th as Cruz struck out, leaving a former Texas Ranger on deck in Chris Davis. Elvis Andrus will lead off here in the Texas 8th. And a strike taken.
Yeah, 2 magnificent years for Texas for Darren. They started with the Angels, and then he briefly went to the Mets. It was 4 games, and then a couple of years with ERAs right around 2 or lower. And I'm talking about 60-70 games. Lights out.
That may have fooled Laz Diaz. Looked like a good pitch.
I think it might have been one of those curveballs that umpires will tell you it went around the plate.
Okay.
And you can see from our green little number 2, it was just a shade inside. Good sinker. There's 88. Bottom drops out. And then he's got one that goes up, and he's got one that bends away from you.
O'Day last worked on Saturday, so he's well rested. Down the right field line off the bat of Andrews, and it's foul. It's the facade of the grandstand. Nick has to run it down. Texas has lost 6 in a row on the road. They trail 8-3 here in the 8th. They've lost 2 straight and 11 of their last 14 games. And they began the night 8 games below 500 at 37-45. Here on July the 1st, 8 below. It is the latest in a season they've been as many as 8 games below 500 since the final day of 2007, when they finished 75-87. They were below 500 that year by 12 games. And with all of the roster upheaval, eventually it was bound to happen where they would have trouble being consistent. And he went too far. Las Diaz calls him out. Andrews down on strikes and 1 away.
You know, a lot of times you get away with that check swing. I mean, this is a big bender. Again, it's just veering off the outside part of the plate. And a very quick swing, but right there. And watch Diaz. He's looking right at it, and then he sees the bat head, thinks it goes far enough, and tells him. And you can see him looking back, hoping.
Tried to sell it.
He's got a little smile on his face. And a nice June, as we mentioned, but O'Day with a really good breaking ball.
Oh, O'Day's had a great July. Rios has 2 hits tonight, and he has scored 1 of the 3 Texas runs. It's funny how things work out in the game as Sean Tolleson begins to get loose. Eric Nadel, the Rangers radio broadcaster, who's going into Cooperstown in a couple of weeks. He'll be the Ford Frick winner this year. He told us that Ron Washington was going to give Alex Rios the day off. He's been scuffling. He was 1 for his last 22. So he thinks better of it, puts him in the game, and he has a 2-hit night. Now he won't want to come out. He did sit Leonis Martin to give him a day off.
Well, you try to rest him, but it's hard to do that when the guys you're resting are one part of your better players, even if they're slumping a little bit, because you keep thinking, because they'll figure it out. That's what season is so long. That's what you have to do. I mean, there's so many. I mean, you're on a roller coaster. I mean, unless you're in some of the elite players, and that roller coaster stays at the same level.
That's why it's amazing the job that Adam Jones does, and Nick Markakis, and J.J. Hardy, and Chris Davis, although Chris is not hitting as we know he can, but he's still out there every day. They play day in and day out, and they produce. And he got him. Rios down on strikes, back-to-back Ks, and 2 men down.
Well, we told T.J. McFarland wanted to live, in that environment around the knees. That's where Darren O'Day lives, but then occasionally he'll throw the high riser. So again, he throws from a different angle, but it's almost like an upshoot. So he gets Rios, who, he's looking down, trying to track the ball. Very difficult release point, because you just don't see guys throwing from that release point very often. He throws it right by him.
Here's Adrian Beltre, cleanup batter for Texas. Stayed inside.
Around the plate. Apparently. I want to look closer. Probably a little bit inside.
And a little bit low. One thing we've noticed since Caleb has been getting so many starts behind the plate, and Buck talked about his game calling before the game, how few times you see pitchers shake him off. He obviously has an idea of what they like. He puts down the fingers, and they're in tune with him, and very rarely do you see shakeoffs. Breaking ball for a strike.
Well, but a lot of that has to do also with the pregame preparation between. I mean, obviously that changes when your bullpen comes in, but he's caught him long enough now, because again, the Tommy John surgery, the elbow injury to Matt Wieters was early in the season. He's been here, so he's gotten used to him. So when you have guys like Wallace and Cheedy, the guys come out of the Atlanta organization, they're known for their pitching and advanced scouts. Dom was an advanced scout for years. If you can get your catchers to feed in. I remember Danny Graham. He didn't catch that much, or would catch when Rick Dempsey, but it was almost like he memorized it, had a photographic memory. So yeah, the right finger did come down, or the right. So we know it's just a suggestion, but you like to see the pitch you want to throw.
Popped up near the dugout. Davis over hoping for a play, and he runs out of room. And it's on top of the dugout. Caleb really earned this spot. I remember when we first met him, he was a Double-A Bowie. One of the 4 years he was a Double-A Bowie, and on a day off he came and joined us on O's Extra. And he talked about living the dream and how one day it would be great to play here and be part of the Orioles after coming through their system. And here he is at the age of 28 now. He just turned 28 on June 18th. He's been with the O's since 2008 when he was drafted. And he came inside and hit him. And Beltre will go to first.
Yeah, it tries to turn. I mean, really, it takes the ball in like you're supposed to. Tries to turn out of the way. Watch him just kind of roll the shoulder, but the ball just keeps running, and he just gets the back of that elbow. So at least he gets the hand, the wrist. It's still going to hurt. Facial expression tells you everything.
And then he didn't see Las Diaz come out in front of the plate, and he flipped his bat and he hit Diaz. So tonight he's hit Caleb Joseph on a backswing, and he's hit the umpire flipping his bat. It was that time he had no idea that Las had moved. Chirinos is 1 out of 3. Singled and scored in the second. Breaking ball bends in there for a strike. The Rangers have gone in order in this game just once. That was in the 4th. It was the only 3-up, 3-down inning for TJ McFarland. TJ worked around the base hits. He allowed 7 of them, but the big number on the scorecard, 0 walks.
Yeah, he really pitched to contact, and a little unlucky because of the Chirinos' hit was legitimate breaking ball that he pulled, and the other two, one by Davis, the other one right down the first baseline by right-handers. I mean, just kind of really nice at bats by the Rangers, and you look like they're going to get back in the game. They would tie it at that time, but even if you go back to that inning, single, double, double, and then he only gives up the 2 runs. Does not give up the go-ahead run. And then the Orioles come right back with 2 to make it 4-2, and then they add the 4-run 4th. And that's what good starting pitchers do. You know, it's kind of like a prevent defense. If you're going to have an inning, okay, you had it, and then you move on. And TJ did a great job of that.
And he strikes him out, chases a pitch outside. O'Day strikes out the side. He hit Beltre with 2 down, so 1 left. We're led to the bottom of the 8th with the O's in front. Birdland social media clubhouse. Visit Orioles.com/connect to find out how you can get insider access on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and more. Connect with your favorite players, plus be among the first to hear breaking news straight from the team. Also sign up for the O's Bird's Nest and earn rewards for your Orioles social media activities. So join the conversation. Get online at Orioles.com/connect and click on the O's Bird's Nest logo and sign up and win.
John Tolleson, back-to-back nights now. Out of the Dodgers organization as a minor league free agent. He'll pitch well last night. Scoreless inning. Pretty good numbers. Righties and lefties. Home runs up, though. Right-handers with a bunch of home runs, but the low average. So the Orioles, 8-3, substantial lead. You get the hit here in the bottom of the 8th. The great thing about having a lead at home, hurts your offense because you don't get the hit in the bottom of the 9th, but that's what you like.
Here's Chris Davis. Hardy and Scope will follow. Chris is 0 for 3. He hit right into the shift his last at bat. A blistering line drive right to Odor in right field. And he hits this one to deep center field. Chases Robertson back and he reaches up and drops the ball. And Davis will head to second base. He did everything but catch it.
Yep. Well, that ball's drilled. And those are, it'd probably be scored an error because, and you can see the protective thing after hitting Rios, and maybe that had something to do with it because he gets it. But this is a BB. It's the kind of at bats you want to see Chris have, and even though it'll be scored as an error, you know, he's looking through that. I mean, again, you're right. It's a ball that, I mean, it hits the glove, but not in the glove. But really good at bat. Because that's when he starts hitting the ball left center, he stays on it.
Well, there's a second error on the scoreboard, so Jim Henneman says he ate. But the good news for Chris, he went with it and hit it well.
Yeah, crushed it.
Here's J.J. Hardy. J.J. singled and scored in the 4th. He's now hitting 5 straight games. JJ in his last 18 games is batting .333. Almost a 3-week stretch. Very consistent.
Well, you're just seeing a healthier, I think, more confident guy. I mean, I just see somebody that's a little more relaxed ever since that home run up in New York. And he hit it off a guy throwing 95. What is Jose Ramirez, I believe, was the young pitcher for the Yankees. Let's watch a little of that game. He was pitching last night through 97. There's Zach Britton. Obviously not a save situation, but they need to get him some work.
High fly ball to deep left center field. Robertson back on it and makes the catch against the wall. He runs it down into the gap and robs J.J. Hardy.
Well, hit it well, but you could just, I mean, it didn't have that normal sound, maybe a little bit up the bat, but a really good swing. And again, this is the speed, and you know, he got to the ball for Davis, he just missed it. This time, a little different story. So he catches it, hits the wall, and then Chris Davis will stay at second. Easily could have been a double.
And he's wearing Chris Davis's old number.
Now you think of some of the guys we've seen. Chicago came in here. They had Eaton in center field, screwing all over the place. And then Tampa Bay came in. Jennings can run them down. Of course, Kiermaier. How about Kiermaier hit another home run for the Rays last night? 3 in 3 games, and he runs all over the outfield.
One out with Davis at second. Chopper towards third. Beltre looks Davis back and gets Scope for the second out. And Jonathan 2 out of 4. with his third consecutive multi-hit game. Going to get Brian Flaherty up. Brian does not have a hit, but he did walk and score in the 4-run fourth. And Flaherty 1 for his last 18.
Well, we need a hit, and as you mentioned, it was that 3-run home run off the lefty.
Collison misses outside, 1-0. Texas has out-hit the O's 10-8 in this game.
Yeah, with the long ball and the defense. I mean, this is a simple game of it, and Flaherty's a big part of it. Orioles turn double plays. The one double play with really good fielding shortstop does not make it. Otherwise, this is a different game.
Yeah. Could be 4-3.
Yeah, could be a 4-3 game if Andrus turns the routine double play.
One on Ryan. Swung through that changeup.
There's another one, I think. Looked like it, or something, a little bit off speed. No, 4-pitch pitcher for Sean Tolleson, and again they got him. He was hurt with the shoulder and back problems with the Dodgers, and took him off the 40-man roster, minor league free agent. And they nab him, and now he's a Ranger. And with all their injuries, they know they need pitching.
And that hit his foot.
And that big bender.
And on a 1-2 pitch, he'll take the base.
Yeah, big curveball, and where? Oh, right on the protective part. Still got hurt a little bit. Front door breaking ball.
And Flaherty to first with Davis at second. And 2 on and 2 out for Caleb Joseph. Caleb, a 2-run home run in the second. He also has an RBI on what should have been a ground out. That was the ball that Andrus booted for the error in the fourth. Eight-3 game for the O's. Texas in the ninth has Jimenez, Rosales, and Odor coming up 6, 7, and 8. Good take. He really does have a good batting eye.
Well, he's much more confident, and they made some changes. Come to the big leagues. I mean, you got to adapt, and a little different stance, more upright, trying to stay on top of the ball. It's a good slider that he takes. I mean, that's a pitcher's pitch. So I probably about 3 weeks ago probably would have chased it. Would have been more anxious. I think one of the great things, even though you get Nick Hundley, and Hundley's going to play. I mean, he's had some great at bats. Is just there's not as much. Hey, I got to do it tonight. I mean, I'll help the team in many ways. I mean, that's what Flaherty's done tonight.
Yep.
Sure, he's one for. We got hit. So what? 1 for 17, 18, whatever you said. At the end of the day, he played the heck out of third, and there's Nick Hundley. I mean, the bats have gotten better. He's learning the ball club. He's happy to be here.
And I like what I just saw there. He's sitting with the starters.
Yeah.
Talking baseball, talking pitching.
Well, it's the name of the game when you're not participating. I mean, that's how I learned it. I learned it as when I came up at 19, I was in the bullpen, and I spot started. But most of the time, I was sitting with Harvey Haddix and John Orsino, Charlie Lau. I was sitting with Steve Miller, Dick Hall, one of the great relief pitchers and control artists. You learn from those guys.
Darren O'Day just went over and joined in. Runners will go on 3 and 2 with 2 down. And it's ball 4, so the bases are loaded.
I'm not sure that's a good idea. Pitch around Caleb Joseph to get to Nick Markakis, who's already hit a bases loaded double, but try to make your pitches. The error actually put Davis out on second, now on third, and then he hit Flaherty. So Nick, chance to have a nice little RBI night and give the Orioles an additional cushion.
Davis, Flaherty, and Joseph third to first with Markakis to face Tolleson. Nick 1 out of 4 with that 2-run double in the fourth. And a late strike call by Laz Diaz on 1.
Well, Laz is down, he's low. The umpire's in a low position, and then he comes up to make the call. So it takes a while. You almost sometimes think he's just kind of turning out of the way, but it's actually to go into the strike call with his right arm.
That time he didn't like it.
Well, you get into the counts, and it was a 3-1 count that Nick hit down the right. I actually think it was maybe a 2-1 count that he hit in for the double. If you speed up his bat, I mean, this could be grand slam time. And that fastball low.
Bottom of the 8th in New York. Tampa Bay still leading the Yankees 2-1. David Price 7 innings. He allowed 1 run on 4 hits and struck out 9. He's out of the game after 119 pitches.
Well, if you are Tampa Bay and you are going to trade him, that's another nice audition.
Yep. Price just went up on Price.
Price is right.
It will be for them. High strike, 2-2.
Wasn't a quality pitch other than the fact that it fooled him. Kind of belt high, but he's looking for something else. And when you do that, that's pitching backwards. So now 2 strikes, 2 balls. Nick's got to look for everything, the whole assortment.
Bases loaded with 2 down. Orioles leading at 8-3 in the 8th. That'll make it back-to-back wins in this series. Strike 3 called at the knees. Nick does not agree with the call and just walks away. Buck does not agree either. Birds leave the bases loaded. We head to the 9th. 8-3 game. By Southwest Airlines. Find Southwest Airlines fares online only at southwest.com. And by visitannapolis.org. Find it here. Eight-3 game as we go to the 9th. And a new pitcher comes on for the Birds. Mr. Britton needs an inning of work.
Yeah, an inning of work and 3 outs. Glowing numbers. 10 out of 12 saves. Doesn't walk a whole lot of guys. Doesn't give up a lot of hits. Righties, lefties. Keeps the ball in the ballpark. Both home runs by the right-handed batters. Jimenez, who comes up, does not have a lot of power. Did, though, get a key hit earlier on in their 2-run second inning. Well, good average, and one of those guys that can catch. He throws well. He's hit well in the minor league level, but never consistently at the big league level. But tonight, so David Lowe comes in for defense with a 5-run lead.
Jimenez, Rosales, and Odor against Zach. who has not been in a game since Friday.
Well, you're going to see mostly sinkers, and you're going to see, if he's on his game, mostly ground balls or strikeouts. Pretty much been the way it has been all year. Incredible velocity and the ability to make the ball sink.
And a chopper to short. Hardy scooped out by Davis on the back end and one away.
Well, again, one of the unheralded things that, unless you're an infielder or you really know the game, that Chris Davis brings to the table. Great hands. We saw him play third base last night because of the Machado suspension, so he moves across the diamond and ball a little bit low. Could have been an error if he doesn't come up with it, and he does.
Adam Rosales, who's making his Texas debut tonight, DHing, called up yesterday, getting a start tonight. The 43rd different player used by the Rangers this year. So TJ McFarland 2 outs away from getting a win as a starter, which would be the first in his career. This is his second major league start. No decision against the Yankees last June 28th. But 5 real good innings here tonight. Conley with Chris Tillman. There's Bud Norris there. Nelson Cruz is talking pitching, or how he rips pitching.
Well, that, and you can learn a lot about pitching from hitters, because they kind of, and they can learn a lot about hitting from pitchers. So I mean, it works both ways. We used to get Terry Crowley, Merv Rettenman, Chico Simone, Moten, Kurt Moten, Davey May, a bunch of pitchers. That's what you do during the game. Do it for your teammates. Watch them win, at least hopefully, and then talk about the game.
Meantime, the outfielders hanging together.
And the DH.
With Mr. Kirby.
Tillman, Young, an outfielder. But
Tillman is always down there with Wayne. It's their part of the bench. A swing and a miss, and Joseph will play at the first.
Yeah, 95-mile-per-hour sinker. Bottom drops out. I think you got it. Maybe you got to make some contact, and whoops.
You know what's great about Wayne on the team is that he's so enthusiastic. If you're just around him, it rubs off on him. He's just a great guy and always smiling, but he stays on the end of the bench there so the outfielders can see him. He directs the outfielders between hitters, and he wants them to know that he's always going to be in the same spot. So that's why he stays down there.
He's a pretty good player, and he knows the game, and they know that he knows the games, and he knows them.
Right.
It's a nice combination.
Rougned Odor.
Kid's had a nice night. Turned around 98 from Tommy Hunter. That was pretty impressive to me. And as you mentioned, has not yet turned 21. Kind of a firm ball up the middle, and then a Baltimore chop. So a couple of hits tonight.
And there's a strike at the knees, 1-1. Odor out of Venezuela.
Well, one of the, he reminds me a little of Vic Davalillo. I mean, who was a Venezuelan. A nice career. Both little guys, and just had an ability and similar swings. He's kind of not that the swing is long, but I mean, starts his hands high. That's the way Davalillo did. Vic could run a little bit.
Hands getting into it. Looking for the final strike.
Well, you just want, if you're Buck Showalter, you want Britton to get his work in and have an efficient inning.
And swept to second base. Scope will get it to first, and the Orioles win it. And they've won the first 2 games in this series. So Zach Britton comes on for an inning of work, and very efficient as he retires the Rangers 3 up and 3 down. Our final score from Camden Yards. The Orioles beat the Rangers by the final of 8-3, and 3 more home runs for the Birds on the night, including a 2-run shot from Caleb Joseph.